the United States? I think you've said the United States will not be attending it, but what is your view of that?
Yeah, the State Department has made it very clear that we will not be a part of that. We think it's ill-timed and inappropriate, and that it's also something that is completely wrong-headed for European states to try to impose in the middle of a war that Israel would accept something that would put people closer to them and put them in a less secure and a less safe situation. And I don't know why the timing of this, but it was interesting that over the weekend, President Macron of France, who originally just spoke of it as a unilateral decision to declare a Palestinian state, then listed a whole bunch of conditions before even he would support a Palestinian state. Most of all of those conditions are conditions that I think everybody would love to see, but certainly have not been forthcoming from the current Palestinian government.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. If you enjoyed today's programme, you can listen to the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and welcome to Friday. Thank you for joining us on CBC's Information Radio, your morning show out of Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. You know, there are no air quality warnings to tell you about right now, which is the first morning in, it has to be probably 3 weeks to a month. Probably. So that doesn't mean that we don't have still, of course, wildfires burning in this province and, of course, across the country. It just means that the way the weather is cooperating today and whatever's going on with the wind, you should be able to take a bit of a deeper breath in this Friday morning. Thanks for joining us and spending the start of the day with us. Let's say good morning to the team. Hello, Sierra Sanders. Sierra's directing the show and going to be on air covering the commute. Good morning to Mr. Abby Adeyemi, who's our fabulous lead technician on the show. And Abby also will be on the air covering more of the weather. Good morning to Dylan Longhurst and welcome back to the early hour. Dylan is our producer of our YouTube stream this morning, so you might be watching the show there. Matt Humphrey's also in for Heather Wells here, and he's here with today's news headlines. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. Manitoba's premier says his government could use emergency powers to free up hotel rooms for people who escaped the wildfires that are still raging in the province's north. Wab Canoe says he's thankful so many in the hospitality industry have opened their doors, but says some hotels aren't stepping up to help. He says the province has been restrained so far in using emergency powers to force them, but that could change if the situation doesn't get better. Meanwhile, leadership of Pimicikamak Cree Nation says help from the Canadian Red Cross for its evacuees has been slow to arrive, and the nation has been covering the cost of meals for its hundreds of members. More news at the bottom of the hour.
All right, thanks very much, Matt.
Back soon.
So Matt, of course, will be back soon and throughout the morning with us. I want to mention that we have World Report coming up in just a minute from now at 6 o'clock. And today we're going to hear more about developments overnight. Israeli jets struck military, missile, and nuclear targets in Tehran at 3 a.m. local time. Iran is warning that Israel will face severe punishment. So things are escalating there. They are certainly developing, and we will get the very latest in moments at 6 o'clock on World Report. Also, we have a full interview about this coming up on our program in the first hour, so stay tuned for that around 6:20 this morning. In addition to local news, we are going to be talking more about cases of measles as they continue to climb across Canada, I should say Canadian news. Today, we're talking about the risks to pregnant people and newborns in more detail, so stay tuned for that as well.
Today on Q.
I'm Jill Deacon in for Tom Power. Graham Greene has been in over 100 films and TV shows, from Dances with Wolves to The Last of Us.
Who the hell are you?
Now, the Six Nations of the Grand River actor is being honored with the Governor General's Award for his work. He'll tell you about how it all started.
It means a lot to be recognized in my own country.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Crowds chant death to Israel on the streets of Tehran as the Islamic Republic states Israel has declared war on Iran. There are calls for retaliation in response to Israel's overnight attacks. The attacks targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, ballistic missile factories, and military commanders. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the operation is to prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Tehran is promising a harsh response, launching about 100 drones towards Israeli territory. Crystal Gamansing has more from Jerusalem.
200 fighter jets reportedly took part in an overnight operation against Iran. Israeli officials warn of rough hours ahead as a state of emergency has been ordered, but say they had to act. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his government's actions were to prevent a nuclear holocaust.
In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time.
Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz was targeted, according to the UN's nuclear watchdog. The IAEA says it is in contact with Iranian authorities to monitor radiation levels. Iranian state media say several scientists were killed, along with the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Hossein Salami. On Iranian television, a statement from the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was read, which pledged extreme punishment for the attacks. The U.S. says it knew of the strikes beforehand, but that Israel acted alone. Robert Wilkie, the former U.S. Secretary for Veterans Affairs in Donald Trump's first administration, says the timing of these attacks play in Israel's favor.
The Israelis have hesitated to fully hit the Iranians because of the presence of Hamas, Hezbollah, and in the Assad regime, Iranian forces in Syria. Those are gone now.
Multiple nations have called for de-escalation. Commercial flights in the region have been canceled, and people across the Middle East wait to see what the coming hours bring. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
U.S. President Donald Trump is responding to news of the attack with another warning for Iran. On social media, Donald Trump urged leaders in Iran to agree to a nuclear deal before it is too late. Iranian and U.S. officials were supposed to meet in Oman this weekend. It's not clear if those talks will proceed. The attacks could have another destabilizing effect globally. Let's bring in our correspondent Chris Brown from our London bureau. So, Chris, what does all of this mean for the region?
Well, Israel is framing this, John, as a preemptive attack. They said the same thing when they invaded southern Syria after Assad's regime fell. Others, though, including Iran, they're calling it an act of war. Muslim nations say it's blatant aggression. And they say there was no indication of any kind of imminent attack from Iran. Western nations are a bit softer. They're using words like concerned because they also did not want Iran to get a nuclear bomb, although they would much rather have had this impasse solved with negotiations. We've seen the statements from Donald Trump urging Iranian leadership to take advantage of the fact that so many of their hardliners appear to have been killed in these first hours of the attacks. I guess the big question now is to see what the response of the political side of Iran's government is to the deaths of so many of their top leaders.
Chris, granted, this is a big question, but what could come next?
I think it depends a lot on what Israel's intentions are. Will they be satisfied with a limited attack, a partial strike aimed at hitting a few of these key installations, killing leaders? Reuters is now reporting as many as 20 senior Iranian military leaders were killed when they were inside one of those underground bunkers. We're already seeing attacks ongoing throughout the day, indicating that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants a more decisive outcome, an outcome that could take several weeks to achieve. What's notable, again, it has to be said, the lack of any real substantial Iranian response. They have thousands of powerful ballistic missiles in the arsenal. So are things in disarray because of the assassinations of the commanders? Or is Iran holding back for some other reason and a response is still to come?
CBC's Chris Brown in our London bureau. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, John.
In northwestern India, emergency personnel still combing the site of Air India Flight 171, where it crashed, as the search for answers continues. The plane crashed into a residential neighborhood yesterday. So far, at least 265 bodies have been recovered, including people who were killed on the ground. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji is on the scene with the latest.
Outside the hospital where victims of the plane crash were taken, Kalpesh Patni is lying down inconsolable. My brother is gone, he says. Akash, only 15, was killed by the plane's burning door that ripped off from the wreckage and plowed into their home. Their mother is in a hospital bed with severe burns all over her body. Both my daughter and my mother's bodies are here at the hospital, this man cries. They were serving food at the medical college the plane crashed into. Only some of the several dozen victims killed, rescue workers believe, as the aircraft tore through a residential area before bursting into flames. Family members are giving DNA samples to formally identify the victims, and Indian officials say the exact death toll won't be clear until that's done.
It's horrible. That's the only way I can describe.
Doctors like Isha Vora are working overtime to complete postmortems and give families some closure.
There are way too many bodies. They are beyond identifiable. They are completely burned, and the only way they are identified is by using their teeth.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi toured the crash site and met with survivors this morning. One of the plane's black boxes has reportedly been found, say local media. A key piece of information for investigators to determine how the Boeing plane crashed to the ground less than a minute after taking off. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ahmedabad, India.
Some of the most powerful leaders in the world will be in Alberta this weekend for the G7 summit. Host Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to avoid a repeat of the drama that played out the last time Canada hosted. As Ashley Burke reports, Carney's government seems to have different expectations for the summit's outcome.
The Prime Minister is trying to Trump-proof the G7 to avoid the kind of disaster they had to deal with the last time Canada hosted. A senior Canadian official says Canada is going to try to get G7 leaders to agree on short, action-oriented statements rather than a long joint communiqué like in the past. Former Canadian ambassador to the UN, Louise Blais, calls it creative.
I think this is more pragmatic, it's a little bit more realistic, and it does prevent a derailment.
A derailment like in 2018. Canada hosted in Charlevoix, Quebec. At a post-summit press conference, the Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau, vowed to retaliate against U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. Trump lashed out, rescinded his support of the joint communiqué, and the whole summit ended in disarray. Now Mark Carney is taking a different approach.
It makes it a lot easier to get the president to agree on short statements than trying to get a long communique approved.
It's seeking different ways to communicate areas of consensus and concern.
Senator Peter Harder was Canada's Sherpa, a top diplomat for 3 of these summits in the past.
So it's de-risking a negative media outcome while making progress on specific issues.
It's also a way for Carney to put his stamp on his first G7. Leaders start arriving in Alberta on Sunday. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally, well, that's the sound of Friday the 13th. In fact, every Friday the 13th in Port Dover, Ontario. Just picture an estimated 100,000 people, many of them riding motorcycles, expected to visit the small Ontario town, population about 8,000. It means if you've got somewhere to go in the region, you'd better give yourself some extra time. Now, though, there's some bad news for the bikers. County officials have, as the local paper reports, put their foot down. They're limiting the number of motorcycles that can park on the main street. They say the event has become so huge that motorcycle parking gets in the way of emergency vehicles.
And whatever comes our way, yeah, darling, go make it happen.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Explode into space. I like smoking lightning.
I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg with our team here at CBC. Thank you so much for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on YouTube. Well, we do not have air quality statement warnings this morning. It's the first time, as we've said, in weeks. So that's a bit of bright news. Abby with your forecast for your Friday in just a moment. Well, this hour on the show, yesterday we were talking about measles and vaccines and how you determine if you need to be vaccinated. If you're born after 1970, in or after 1970, for example, do you need a booster? Today, we continue the conversation, but today we're looking at what experts are saying about the serious risk that measles can pose to pregnant people and newborns. So we'll hear about that. That's coming up at 10 to 7. In addition, a beloved coach in Brandon is retiring after 38 years. As his final month of coaching comes to an end, we'll find out how he's feeling and what's next. And yes, we will build on the international news that you've just been hearing about what has been happening in Iran. So stay tuned. That is coming up at 6:20. Right now, speaking of news, Matt Humphrey is in with our Manitoba headlines.
Good morning. Premier Wab Kinew is hinting he could use emergency powers to free up more hotel rooms for wildfire evacuees. He made the comments after touring burned-out areas in the province's northwest. He says many hotels have been accommodating, but there are others that haven't opened their doors to people in need. Now, he says the province may use emergency powers to compel them to do so. We'll hear more at 6:30. Meanwhile, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says the province could do more to help businesses affected by the wildfires. The province says it'll waive interests and penalties for businesses that can't afford to pay their taxes on time. But the Federation says more help is possible. More news at the bottom of the hour.
You a sports fan, Matt?
Sure.
I know you are. Bombers or Oilers last night? I was flipping back and forth.
Well, Bombers. I'm more of a...
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a hometown kind of guy.
I know.
Yeah.
Nice game to be at. I was kind of, envious of the folks that were out there last night. Good night for football. We beat the Lions 34-20.
Good weather for it.
Really kind of nerve-wracking about Brady Oliveira.
Yeah, got hurt.
I went to get a glass of water and he was out.
Yeah.
Like I literally was like, I don't understand what happened to Brady Oliveira. It happened so early in the game.
Early in the season, too.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens there. And the Oilers.
Of course. Game 4.
I was flipping back and forth. It was 3-0, and then it was 3-1, and I thought, okay. And then I kind of just kept watching the Bombers. And I woke up this morning. It was 5-4 in overtime.
That's
they
right.
won. Unbelievable.
The rebound.
Yeah.
Really coming back.
Unbelievable. So we'll see what happens.
Go
next.
Canada.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Nice to have some things to cheer for in these times where things are so stressful. All right, 6:12 is the time. Abby is going to talk more about today's forecast on Friday, and there's actually lots of good news in this, Abby.
Yeah, it's shaping to be more like a warm and mostly sunny day in the southern region. We will see some smoke sweeping at some point. Light breeze would come. Meanwhile, up north, it's still cool this morning. We're seeing temperatures below zero up north. Also, we have a mix of sun and clouds throughout the day. In Winnipeg right now, no warnings as mentioned earlier. 12 degrees with hazy skies, a bit of sunshine already poking through, and some smoke still hanging in the air. The day is looking bright and warm. It's going to be mainly sunny today. We warm to a high of 25. As we get into the evening period, we're going to see some partly cloudy conditions, and hazy skies will still continue. And then temperatures drops around 12 degrees. Across board in the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures between 10 and 12, and up north we're seeing temperatures around -1 and 7 degrees this morning.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders now on the airwaves, telling us what's going on in the commute.
Good morning. We're just getting the show started, and the morning commute is just getting started as well. Pretty quiet out there. But if there's something slowing you down out there this morning, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt and I were just talking about sports, and it is true that a coach can change your life. So this morning, we're actually going to start the show with the story of a coach in Manitoba. The school year is coming to a close, and a retiring basketball and volleyball coach is fondly remembering many years of service. Neelan High School's athletic director and coach Don Thompson has been a local staple in Brandon's sports community for 38 years. Still, he says he didn't expect so many people would come forward to thank him for the role he had in their lives as a coach in Manitoba. Coach Don Thompson spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal on Up to Speed.
I know it's been a difficult week for students and staff after that violent assault that took place on Tuesday. I wonder, how are you doing?
You know, I mean, we're all doing really well. You know, we're fortunate that the staff and students handled the situation extremely well. Brandon Police Service did an outstanding job. And, it's like anything when you're healing. It's just going to take day at a time. And last couple of days have been pretty heavy, but we're slowly getting through it.
And part of that managing of life also includes this bittersweet end to your long coaching career. What is that like for you? How does it feel to be stepping away from coaching?
Yeah, well, I got a feeling I'll keep my nose involved in coaching a little bit, but definitely different when I'm stepping away from the walls of, Neelan High School, which I was a part of for 27 years, and the Brandon School Division that I was a part of for 38. So I'm not sure what September's going to bring. I think it'll be, I warned my wife that she better look out. I could be just walking around the yard trying to do things.
Are there things that stand out for you when you think of all of those years? Or are there favorite memories that stand out?
You know what? There's so many to list. I'd never be able to put just one, but just to be honest, just the opportunity to work with the kids that came through and the families. Like you're all part of each other, and to be part of their family journey at that particular stage of their lives, and then them being a part of mine is probably the biggest part that I'll always remember.
There is a connection with sports and coaching. Why those two things for you?
You know what? I was so fortunate growing up. First of all, I had a pair of parents that really believed in whatever you did, you needed to pay forward. And I was also lucky going through the school system that I had some outstanding people that put in lots of time with me, and that time actually created some opportunities for me to eventually play some basketball at a different level and experience some things that, if those people weren't in my life, I never would have got those chances. So, I guess, that's the biggest part. I really believe in paying it forward, and having the opportunity to do that for so many years has been just the best part of my life.
And you have been using that opportunity as part of the guiding light in your approach to teaching. How did you figure out what approach would work best for helping students manage the things they have to do and things that they are about to need to deal with?
Yeah, I always tease kids. I said they're all like snowflakes because no two are ever the same. So to think that you can just use a cookie cutter approach to it all, I think the biggest thing is you just have to create relationships, and you do that through communication. And I'm a big believer that communication is sometimes we're trying to communicate and get a reply in advance, but we don't listen enough. And, I've really tried to listen to kids, and here's what their needs are, and here's what maybe I can do to help them at that particular moment they're in.
Did those needs change over time? Because you've been coaching. What's it been like from when you first started to now?
Oh yeah, no. Let's face it. Look what society's done over the last 38 years. I tease people on my teaching staff when I started teaching in the Brand School Division. We didn't have a photocopier in our school, and there's no computers, and you just eventually get to the point now that we're so tech aware and things like that. It's changed. So the needs of the kids have changed. But at the end of the day, I always believe the kids still want to be held accountable. They still want to do their best, and they just need sometimes someone to help them attain those goals that they probably couldn't attain themselves. So if you can be that person and link in and spend some time with them, then, it's just about caring and doing what you can do to the best of your ability.
Don, the relationships that you built and that you kept clearly meant something to people, because when you announced your retirement, you got a box with 200 or 300 letters. What was that like for you when you saw that?
Yeah, that's to be honest, I haven't cracked open the box yet. I got
what's stopping you?
Yeah, I might need to be in a real private place for those memories. Yeah, and it'll be quite a time for me. I know that, but that's just what those the people, whether they're the adults in the room or whether they're the students that had memories, we're all just, once again, just sharing journeys, and they just happen to cross paths, and we're so fortunate to be left with such good journeys.
Don, what do you hope those letters would say?
You know what? If they can say that in some way, shape, or form, I I helped somebody get to somewhere they didn't think was possible, then you know what? That's all it can be. But I don't get to send 300 letters back. That's kind of the one that I feel really bad about. But I'm just hoping they understand that those letters mean so much to me, and if I could respond to all of them, I would in a heartbeat.
Don, I'm not a betting person, but I think I'm very, very confident in betting that many of those letters likely say those things that you hoped they would say.
Yeah, I would hope. I mean, the best part about these journeys, and I think the for me, is I've been able to hang on to them. I'm still even after the incident at Neelan, I've received so many texts and people just seriously asking, "Are you okay?" and "How are the kids doing?" And those things are so important. So we're still involved. I'm involved in knowing each other, these students who are now mums and dads, and they've got children, and they're giving me a text on, well, what would you do if this happened in sports? So it's kind of fun now watching them kind of go through that life.
Some of those folks might be listening to you right now. What do you want them to hear?
You know what? I mean, they were a special part of my life, and they still are a special part of my life. And if I could reach out and give each one of them a big hug right now, I would do that, because that's how much they've meant to me, and I'm hoping I meant that much to them.
How lovely, right? That was Coach Don Thompson, who's retiring at the end of the month after 38 years coaching and teaching in Brandon. He spoke with the CBC's Faith Fundell yesterday.
It's an honor to have you at the White House.
The stories that matter.
The opportunity is in the partnership.
As they happen.
There are some places that are never for sale.
And what they mean to you.
But never say never. Never say never.
For news you can trust, stay with CBC News.
6:22 is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcuso. Well, let's return to international news that's very much still developing this morning. In case you missed World Report, Israeli jets struck military, missile, and other nuclear targets in Tehran at 3 a.m. local time. Iran is warning now that Israel will face severe punishment, confirming that a number of Iranian commanders and scientists have been killed. And all of this on the eve of Canada, of course, hosting the G7 Leaders Summit in Kananaskis starting on Sunday in Alberta. To talk about the developments overnight and the way forward, Julia Kulik is with us live. She's Director of Research at the G7 Research Group based at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
What was your reaction to this developing news overnight?
I think it's a deeply unfortunate and dangerous move by Israel against Iran. The Trump administration had been negotiating with Iran about curtailing its nuclear weapons program, and they seem to be making progress. Perhaps so much progress that Israel didn't want to wait and thus preempted both Trump and the status quo in the Middle East by attacking Iran's nuclear facilities right before the leaders are set to convene in Kananaskis. I think it's highly unlikely that Israel has the ability to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities, and this will only strengthen its resolve to acquire more nuclear weapons and institute a new wave of proliferation. There is no doubt that Iran will retaliate. They've already vowed hard revenge, so this will bring more death, destruction, and instability in the region.
In a televised address, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Operation Rising Lion, which is what it's been, we've learned it's called, will, quote, continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat, end quote. What sense do you make of that? And are we now on the verge in this region, as you said, of yet a different level of the war?
Yeah, I think it's deeply unsettling. Going back to the summit, promoting international peace and security was outlined as a key priority from the outset, obviously not with this incident particularly in mind, but the war in the Middle East was always going to be on the agenda. And the G7 itself was designed to be a crisis response institution with the ability to adapt and act quickly in the face of international challenges. So while this is unexpected and, as I said, deeply unsettling, it was designed to pivot in the face of a crisis. So it's in some ways good that G7 leaders are convening this weekend so that they can take concrete actions to de-escalate.
I'll ask you more about what those concrete actions might look like at the G7, but I just want to just let listeners know how the U.S. has responded this morning. So the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is saying that Israel took unilateral action against Iran and underscored that the U.S. was not involved in the strikes. We do know that President Trump, though, was speaking, I believe it was yesterday or earlier this week, about, saying that, things were, I want to get this correct, saying that there could be something that could happen. What does this mean for the Israel-U.S. alliance?
Yeah, so there's indication yesterday, I believe, that according to CNN reports, that he was warning that something could happen, but didn't know exactly. So my understanding is that Israel did give him advance warning, but he appears to be quite upset, and I'm sure deeply unhappy. I think, first and foremost, he cares most about his public image and how this will reflect on the ability to broker peace. So I think, this will cause relations to be only more contentious. But I think in some ways there is a possibility that going into this G7 summit, leaders will now be more united and behind President Trump in sort of telling Israel that it must stop. And there were indications before this that, there was a lack of unity and a lack of consensus expected at this G7 summit. So this may change the sort of dynamic around the table.
So to those concrete things that might be discussed around this at the G7, what kind of tangible outcomes are you going to be watching for?
Yeah, so no doubt that the first day will be focused on the situation in the Middle East and what needs to be done to de-escalate. I will say that there is 2 more days for summit discussions when we expect there to be subsequent discussions on global economic stability, on harnessing AI and quantum technologies, on wildfires, which were identified as a priority for the first time at a G7 summit, no doubt due to the wildfires raging across your province and other provinces beside it. So I do expect that there will be concrete movement towards some shared governance frameworks on AI and hopefully some joint investments on wildfire prediction systems. I'll also be looking for concrete agreements to de-risk and diversify supply chains on critical minerals. This will help catalyze both public and private investment across the G7 and hopefully spur economic growth. Sorry.
I was just going to ask you whether or not you think we're going to get, something different from this G7, because the leaders are suggesting that instead of sort of a big statement out of the end of it, that the goal is to actually have, especially given, the gravity of what's happening all over the world and the need for leaders to sort of, tell people something. Do you think that that's actually going to be met, that we'll come out with something more than, smiles and handshakes, not to minimize things, but, something more concrete?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think there were initial reports suggesting that there will not be a communique. So for those that don't follow the summit that closely, a communique is a sort of statement that's issued in the name of all leaders, which demonstrate that there is a consensus on certain things and a joint agreement to move forward in a particular way. So there were reports initially that we won't have a communique document, that we'll have a chair's summary, which is slightly different, and then we'll have statements on the sort of key issues.
So it might be the opposite, actually, of what I said. It might be less concrete.
Well, those were the reports prior to the incidents that took place over the last couple of hours.
Yeah,
so it remains to be seen. But I guess I would just say that, this is a soft power institution. So while in some ways it may not appear that much progress is being made because, photos are being taken, etc., I think the power in it is really the discussions that occur across the 3 days and how much certain leaders can get other leaders around the table to move the needle in ways that maybe they wouldn't have without these private and very frank discussions.
Thank you very much, Julia. Appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thanks so much.
That's Julia Kulik. She's Director of Research at the G7 Research Group based at the University of Toronto. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are listening from Winnipeg to CBC Manitoba's Information Radio. It's a morning show. It is 12 degrees in the city. There's smoke in the air, but no air quality advisory. And still ahead, we have business news. And today, news that more people are falling behind on their mortgage payments in this country. So stay tuned. We'll dig into that after your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. At 6:30, we're at 12 degrees with mostly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good morning. I'm Matt Humphrey. Premier Wab Kinew says he's considering emergency powers to force hotels to free up more rooms for wildfire evacuees. He spoke last night after an aerial tour of the affected areas in the province's northwest. He also met with those involved in the firefighting effort in Flin Flon and visited the shelter set up in Thompson. He thanked many in the hotel industry for opening their doors, but says it's time for the rest to follow suit.
We got families with young kids sleeping in a rink on a cot going into week 3 in that situation, and then we drive by in the same community, a hotel room with an empty parking lot. We are asking for a bit more from the hotel sector.
At this point, wildfires have forced more than 21,000 Manitobans from their homes. Meanwhile, a Manitoba First Nation says it's covering hotels and meals for hundreds of evacuees the Canadian Red Cross is responsible for. Pimachikamak leadership says it's footing the bill for some hotels and meals for about 800 people scattered across 19 Winnipeg hotels. Incident Commander Ryan Castell says the Red Cross has been slow to take over the cost and responsibility.
Some of our people are starving because they don't have funds, and we can't get food to them in the various hotels they're staying. So it's a real nightmare logistically, trying to feed people.
The Red Cross declined an interview, but tells CBC the organization says it's providing accommodations, meals, and registration services to evacuees, including from Pimachikamak. They sent us a statement. They encouraged people to register with them, saying, quote, without registration, it could be challenging for support to be provided. And Manitoba small businesses hurt by the wildfires received some good news from the province, but an organization representing them hopes more help is on the way. Brianna Solberg is a director with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. She says temporary tax relief, like what was announced by the province yesterday, is a good start, but tax forgiveness or some other form of assistance would be even better.
When we're looking at lost revenues and potentially some tourism operators missing the entire 2025 season, to have to pay profit-insensitive taxes at the end of the day might force them certainly to make tough decisions, but it impacts, the viability of their business for next year.
The province says it will waive interest and penalties for wildfire-affected businesses that can't afford to pay their taxes on time. Turning now to West Asia, where the Israeli military carried out a series of airstrikes overnight on Iran. Now today, Israel is bracing for Iran's response.
We're very afraid because we were shocked by the alarms and the notifications we got on our phones about how urgent the situation was and how Iran was attacking and how the attack was imminent.
As a resident of Tel Aviv, amid reports Iran has launched as many as 100 drones toward Israel. Israel's overnight strikes are being called the most significant military campaign Iran has faced since the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s. Anna Cunningham has more.
Israel's targets in Iran included nuclear sites. Images out of the Iranian capital, Tehran, appear to also show damaged residential buildings. Iran's state TV has reported an explosion at the Natanz nuclear facility. State media showing black smoke rising over the uranium enrichment site. Iranian authorities have told the International Atomic Energy Agency there is no increase in radiation from the area. Iranian media is also reporting that the country's highest-ranking military officer, Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri, and the head of the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Hossein Salami, were killed. 6 leading nuclear scientists were also killed. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says Israel should anticipate a severe punishment. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
And finally, here at home, proponents of a protected bike lane along Winnipeg's Wellington Crescent are angry after their scheduled delegations to City Hall were cancelled. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes says she knows some cyclists are frustrated with the pace of building bike lanes, and she was criticized yesterday when her committee voted not to hear the delegations because a report into the Wellington bike lane isn't ready yet. Lukes says that lane is inevitable, and she understands why people are upset.
I was the Winnipeg Trails coordinator for 10 years. I came down to City Hall 50 or 60 times. I was very frustrated. I've said things I probably shouldn't have said when I was advocating for active transportation. I understand.
She says a report about the bike lane will be ready for July 3rd, when delegations will have another chance to speak. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Well, a beautiful night last night for the Bomber game. The Bombers did come out on top of the Lions, 34-20. So if you're one of the thousands of people in the stands, you got a good show. Let's see what today's going to bring weather-wise. It's time for your regional forecast from CBC. Here now is Abby once again.
Good morning once again. It's going to be a sunny and hazy day in the southern part of the province. The north is staying cool this morning, and it will be seeing a mix of sun and clouds. No warnings, but we still have smoke in the air in a lot of regions. Winnipeg at this time, we're seeing more like shaping up to be a bright and hazy day. At this point, 12 degrees with some smoke, some sunshine breaking through the clouds, and partly cloudy conditions also trying to compete with the sun. We will see mostly sunny conditions today, though. The haze is still going to hang around. We warm up to 25 degrees. We might get a 26, but I'm looking at 25 this morning, and some light winds will be coming from the west. In the Pembina Valley region, similar conditions to Winnipeg this morning. We're also seeing temperatures around 10-11 degrees. We're also going to see mainly sunny conditions there. Highs expected 25, 26. We might get, it's just that time the temperature just gets to 25 or 26, and then it begins to cool off again. So that's what's going to happen in the regions today. Brandon at 11 at this time, partly cloudy, also a mix of sun and clouds. Hazy conditions will be felt. Highs around 22. Dauphin is mostly cloudy at this time. Temperatures around 11 degrees. Also expecting a mix of sun and clouds and some haze developing for that region. Winds will be coming from the southeast. We're going to see high of 22 degrees. Gimli, good morning. You're at 11 under partly cloudy skies. For the Interlake region, we're looking at sunny conditions, hazy skies, and the winds coming from the east. We're going to see highs around 22. The powerful influence surrounding areas, we're seeing temperatures around 7 this morning. It's going to start sunny any moment from now, and then some clouds will roll in later in the day. Smoke will linger in the air. That's the local smoke from the fires around the region. You're still going to feel it, but no warnings. High around 19. And then further north, you travel to Thompson, you can see temperatures around -2. Usually this is a Churchill weather, but we're seeing -2 in Thompson this morning. Partly cloudy. It's going to turn mainly sunny in a bit, and then we saw some fog in that region earlier. That should clear, and we'll see high around 19. And then Churchill is sunny at this time, 9 degrees, mostly sunny conditions for most of the day, and the high will rate 19 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It is time to check in on what's going on in the morning commute. Now, be careful and watch for runners, because Manitoba Marathon's on Sunday, and I know because I live with a marathoner that sometimes, you don't train right up until the last minute, but it's Friday, so you're probably going to see a lot of last minute folks getting out there, even if they're taking sort of half the run, taking it easy, but beautiful weather for it. Any other issues in traffic though, Sierra?
Yeah, we got a call from David during the news. Westbound Chief Peguis Trail at Henderson and Main. Emergency vehicles were in the right lane. Not much information past that, but if you are in that area, keep left to pass there and slow down, as there are emergency vehicles there in the right lane. So that's westbound Chief Peguis Trail at Henderson and Main. So keep left to pass there. Some emergency vehicles. Don't have much more, but if you have any updates on that, please feel free to give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
It was Dan that called?
Sorry, David.
David. So I didn't write it down. So hi, David.
Hi, David. Thank you for the call, David. And if you have any updates, please feel free to give me a call.
Absolutely. 788-3093, that number. Okay, Crystalie Ramlakan is here. Crystalie, before we get into our first story, which is about mortgages, I'm going to ask about Father's Day and make a comment. I just want everyone to know that, you know how now a lot of people wear socks with sandals?
Okay, yes.
Okay, like my dad made that cool long before it was cool. I grew up in the 80s, and my father wore these brown crisscross, like, I don't know if they were leather or faux leather sandals with white socks. In my family, we call them Dito socks because that's like Ukrainian for grandpa, right? So we call them Dito socks because my father thinks he's the only one that wears them, I think. But they're not low, they're not high, they're about partway up his shin. And when we were kids, it's like, oh. And now it's all over the place. It's like he made them cool long before. So happy Father's Day, Bill. Good for you.
Yes, I think that a lot of dads were starting trends that are popular today now.
Yes. I don't know if you have any strange style things around your family, but that one came out of my dad. All right, let's talk mortgages. It's not good news. People in Canada are falling behind in their mortgage payments. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. So unemployment is the most common cause of late payments, and that's according to a new report by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And, the jobless rate has been creeping up amid higher economic uncertainty. And at the same time, people are facing high levels of household debt and increased rates when renewing their mortgages. So the amount Canadians owe relative to their income is going up. And Canadians actually have the highest debt-to-income ratio among the G7 nations. But the mortgage delinquency rate at the end of last year was still lower than 2019, so it's not the worst that we've seen. Now, typically people tend to default on other debt before their mortgages, and auto loan, line of credit, and credit card delinquencies are up. So borrowers are also seeking more alternative mortgage lenders who provide loans at higher interest rates, which can get people even to more trouble. And those lenders are giving loans to people who don't qualify with the banks. Now, last month, the Bank of Canada said it worries a severe and long-lasting trade war could push the rate of mortgage arrears beyond levels reached in the 2008 financial crisis. But Bank Governor Tiff Macklem called that a pretty extreme scenario.
Let's go to another story here. What's the latest on Canada Post?
Well, the federal jobs minister says she's using her powers under the Canada Labour Code to send the latest offer from the Crown Corporation to a vote among employees. It's a rare intervention in labor negotiations that some say could give the employer the upper hand in its long-standing dispute with the union. So the minister says it's in the public interest to give members an opportunity to vote. And Canada Post also says a vote provides workers with a voice. But the union calls the move yet another assault on its collective bargaining rights. The government already took action to pause a strike in December, as some people may remember, and ordered people back to work. And the union is calling on members to reject this offer. Governments rarely impose votes to settle labor disputes. Unions consider it a form of interference. And as we know, these two sides have been negotiating for quite some time now, a year and a half, as the financial situation for the Postal Service has gotten even worse.
And to another story, yet another company is delving into AI, and this one's a toy company.
Yeah, that's right. So Mattel, of course, the maker of Barbie, Hot Wheels, and Uno cards, has teamed up with OpenAI to develop toys and games with artificial intelligence and expects to launch its first AI-powered product later this year. So toy manufacturers are facing muted demand as consumers rein in spending to brace for the economic fallout of U.S. President Donald Trump's shifting trade policy. So Mattel also plans to incorporate AI tools like ChatGPT into its business operations to enhance product innovation. And over the last year, Mattel has relied on producing films, TV shows, and mobile games based on its products to offset a slowdown in its core toy business. And last month, Mattel withdrew its annual forecast and said it would raise prices on some products to mitigate higher supply chain costs.
What do the numbers look like today, Crystal Lee?
In Europe, stocks are losing ground after Israel's airstrikes on Iran. So Germany is down, the UK is down, France is down. In Asia, markets are falling as well. Japan is down, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is down. Oil is up $5.62 to $73.66 US per barrel. Gold is up $35.25 to $3,419.37 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.13 of a cent to 73.4 cents US.
All right. Thanks very much. Talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Yes, you too, Marcy. Thank you.
That's Business News on CBC for your Friday morning with Crystal Lee Ramlicam. It is 6:44 a.m. and sometimes you spot something and you know it's a typo and you know that somebody who did it feels badly, but this is not about that. This is just about acknowledging this because we kind of think like it's sort of like, wow, what a typo to make. But there's a report that Abby just caught out of the corner of his eye that went up on television about our temperature in Winnipeg. This weekend.
One of those you just like spotted and like, oh, that's just a typo. But I just want people to know out there preparing for the marathon, it's not going to be 150 degrees on Saturday when you're watching on the main network on TV. It will not be 150 degrees. Trust me. It's way cooler than that. Let me just check. Saturday in Winnipeg, we're going to see about 25 degrees.
Okay, that's much better than 150. Yeah, which is what it says on one of the graphics there. Yeah. All right, let's go to a little bit of music now. And this one actually involves a couple of Manitoba artists that are in helping with songwriting for Cree singer-songwriter Kaylee Watts. She's an artist to watch. Her debut album is right around the corner. So she has co-writing credits on this album from Serena Ryder and the Manitobans I mentioned, Sebastian Gaskin from Tatasquiac, among others, like William Prince, who she co-wrote this song with. From 2024, this is Kaylee Watts. The tune's called East Wind.
There's a darkness. There's an ember in the east wind. Is it an echo or a calling? But is it calling without an answer? Always wondering where you could be, but what it isn't always won't be, and what will be won't be there anymore. Does it mean everything all at once? Sometimes it's easier said than done when you're trying to find the way, when you're trying to find the way. It's far from over when you've arrived. You've just made it to the other side. When you're trying to find the way, when you're trying to find the way. There's a darkness. There's an ember in the east wind. Is it an echo or a calling? What is it calling without an answer? Doesn't mean everything all at once. Sometimes it's easier said than done when you're trying to find a way, when you're trying to find a way. It's far from over when you've arrived. You just made it to the other side. When you're trying to find a way, when you're trying to find a way. The only way is through, no matter what you do. With every road that ends, so another begins. In the east wind, in the east wind. trying to find the way, when you're trying to find the way, far from over when you've arrived, you just made it to the other side, when you're trying to find the way, when you're trying to find the way.
Kaylee Watts, East Wind, her debut album came out in 2024. She co-wrote this tune with Manitoba's William Prince.
The 2025 Inspire Awards, Vision and Visionaries, celebrating Indigenous excellence and sharing remarkable contributions of First Nations, Inuit and Métis people in Canada. 12 outstanding Indigenous achievers will be honored in a unique viewing experience, blending live action and animation, showcasing their accomplishments and cultures through a cinematic journey. The 2025 Inspire Awards, Saturday, June 21st at 7 p.m., 8 Atlantic, 8:30 in Newfoundland on CBC and CBC Gem.
10 to 7 the time right now, 12 degrees the temperature. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio, CBC Radio's morning show live in downtown Winnipeg. Well, it is hard to believe, frankly, but measles is something that we need to talk about again. Canada achieved measles elimination status back in 1998, and now we're more than a quarter century later, and as you know, cases of the highly contagious virus continue to grow. Now, experts are also warning about the serious risk that measles poses to people who are pregnant. Last week, Ontario authorities announced the first death in Canada linked to the current outbreak, a premature baby infected with measles before birth. To talk about this angle on measles, we have Dr. Anna Banerjee with us again. She's a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the University of Toronto, and she joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this week we also learned, Dr. Banerjee, that 6 babies have been born in Ontario with congenital measles since last fall. That's when the current outbreak began. So they were born to unvaccinated mothers and all have recovered. But what are the risks associated with measles for people who are pregnant and for newborns?
So the risk to a pregnant mother is much higher than a non-pregnant mother. And the risk of death due to measles in a pregnant woman is like 10-fold higher. So pregnant women can be, are hospitalized at higher rates. They can have measles cause pneumonia, hepatitis, and go to the brain and cause something called encephalitis. And there can be direct transmission of the virus into the placenta to the unborn child. So the baby, that can result in miscarriages, stillbirths, premature deliveries, and that can also result in the baby getting pneumonia, hepatitis, and again, brain infections, or, basically the virus can go anywhere in the body.
So if an unvaccinated person is pregnant and they're exposed to the measles virus, what goes on in their body?
So if an unvaccinated person is who's pregnant is exposed, then what we do is we recommend vaccination. So it depends on the time. If it's something and the exposure, if it's something where you hear, there's an outbreak going on, you were in a mall, then generally we would say just get the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Now, if that's a very close exposure, for example, someone in the household has measles and the pregnant woman's unvaccinated, if it's within 6 days of exposure, the woman can get the measles antibody. But in general, any female of childbearing age that's exposed, that potentially could want pregnancy in the future, should be vaccinated before pregnancy with the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. So any childbearing age female should be vaccinated just to prevent the risks in pregnancy.
How do hospitals manage the risk of all of this measles transmission in areas where, delivery rooms or neonatal intensive care units?
So you want to have someone, you have to be aware that someone has measles or has been exposed. You want to keep them isolated because the measles vaccine can be in the air for about 2 hours after someone leaves. So, you want to use proper infection control wherever they are. And then you want them in a negative pressure room where the air is vented outside of the hospital rather than recirculated in the hospital. So there has to be proper infection control measures. And really, if a pregnant woman ends up coming to the hospital, ideally, you should be at a hospital where there is the capacity to manage a newborn with measles.
What's driving the current measles outbreak in Canada?
Well, there's a worldwide increase of measles around the world, and that's due to a lot of reasons. One is, vaccine hesitancy, misinformation, but also in the past few years, especially recently with the cuts to places like World Health Organization, a lot of the vaccination clinics are no longer exist. And so there's a lot more people who are unvaccinated, and that has caused the surge of measles around the world. And so if you travel around the world and you're unvaccinated, you're being exposed, you come back and you can import it. It's called importing of a disease into Canada. And then within Canada, you're exposing other people. So there's domestic transmission. So what's been happening is that there was a wedding in New Brunswick, and people from Ontario were at the wedding, came back to Ontario to a group of people who were unvaccinated, and it's spread a lot in that group, and now it's diffusing throughout Canada.
What's your parting message this morning, given how the situation continues to develop?
So before the vaccine, 1963, almost everyone had measles. And after the vaccine was introduced and then a second dose, we went from everyone getting it to almost nobody getting it. And so it happened in the past. We can do it again. We just need to get people vaccinated. And, we could, really deaths due to measles should be something that's historical. It shouldn't be happening now.
Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Banerjee. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's Dr. Anna Banerjee, Pediatric Infectious Disease Specialist at the University of Toronto. It is 4 minutes to 7 o'clock. Matt Humphrey's going to join us shortly with morning headlines. I just want to mention a couple of things here. I posted on Facebook. Always when we post on Facebook or think about what we're going to put in the listener line, we try to find something that might be, capturing the mood of Manitoba. It was a hard one today because, of course, it's Friday. We have had an extraordinary number of weeks with 21,000 people in the south from the north because of wildfires. This is the first morning we haven't had air quality advisories, so I think fires are on people's minds. We're going to hear from the Premier in the news and later on as well, as he got that aerial view and visited communities north to talk about wildfires. So, of course, that's on people's minds. But then it's also Father's Day, so maybe this weekend you're doing something with your father, and you're heading out and about, or you're thinking about what your father means to you, or maybe you're feeling some grief because your father's gone. But then it's also marathon weekend because people are training out there and getting ready to run. And it's also grad season. Some of you have been writing to me impromptu about your very special grads in your life. So I landed on this. What is on your Friday mind in Manitoba? Could be anything, and you can share with us this morning. So, for example, Susan Brennan says, I am so happy. She wrote, I'm so happy because it's my last day to carpool to St. Mary's Academy. It's the last exam for my daughter. It's the last drive for me, and sleeping in never sounded so good. There's those moments, right, in a parent's life. Also, when the kid gets your kid gets their driver's license and you go, yay, no more shuffling them around. So whatever's on your mind this Friday morning, we'd love to hear about it. There's some beautiful grad stories, by the way, being shared on our webpage as well. On my Facebook page as well. So we might get some of those comments on the air. You can always call us as well, 788-3205, 788-3205. Matt Humphrey is here now with our headlines.
Good morning. Manitoba's Natural Resources Minister says recent rains have left some cautiously optimistic that out-of-control wildfires will be snuffed out soon, but he warns the height of this year's wildfire season may still be yet to come. The latest data from the province shows there are 8 fires burning out of control right now, with around 20 burning overall. We'll hear more at the bottom of the hour.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Baxter.
The forecast, there is some smokiness in the air this morning, though no air quality advisory for anywhere in Manitoba. So that smokiness is in Winnipeg. It's 12 degrees, winds are calm. It will be hazy for the day, but sunny and a high of 25. Our next chance of rain isn't until Monday with a 60% chance of showers, in case you're wondering. Brandon, mostly cloudy right now, 11. Thompson is the cold spot in the province. It's partly cloudy and -2. On the morning commute, watch for runners out there prepping for last-minute marathon. And 788-3093 is where you can reach us with problems. We did know David called westbound Chief Peguis Trail. Henderson at Maine there's emergency vehicles, or there had been, in the right lane. So you're keeping left to pass. Not sure if that's cleared or not. You can update Sierra at 788-3093. In the next hour of Information Radio, more than 20 years ago, a local father, speaking of Father's Day, wrote an open letter to his son, and he published it in the Winnipeg Free Press. Now, His son is grown up, and he's revisiting that letter and reflecting on how parenting has changed. So stay tuned, we're going to talk to him. Also, we'll find out how a Winnipeg actor landed a leading role in Netflix's newest teen drama. Pretty cool. He's going to be in studio to tell us about that. And then at 10 to 8, boy, is it construction season. We talked to Winnipeggers and some of our city's biggest, some of our biggest, I'm going to try this again. We talked to Winnipeggers around some of our city's biggest construction projects. And we talked to them about them as well. Stay tuned. Jim Agapito was out and about in the city, and we'll hear that in the next hour. Stay tuned. World Report's coming up next.
Today, The Current. The drug maker says the medicine creates no euphoria or high like opioids sometimes can.
This year, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States approved the first painkiller in decades that is not an opioid. Pain researchers are excited about the breakthrough, finding safer alternatives for people suffering with pain, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Crowds chant death to Israel on the streets of Tehran. As the Islamic Republic states Israel has declared war on Iran, there are calls for retaliation in response to Israel's attacks. The latest, or rather the largest military strikes on this scale on Iran's soil since the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s. Anna Cunningham has the latest.
Israel's targets in Iran included nuclear sites and killed a number of military commanders. Images out of the Iranian capital, Tehran, appear to also show damaged residential buildings, windows smashed, some completely destroyed. Iran's state TV has reported an explosion at the Natanz nuclear facility, state media showing black smoke rising over the uranium enrichment site. Iranian authorities have told the International Atomic Energy Agency there is no increase in radiation from the area. Iranian media is also reporting that the country's highest-ranking military officer, Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri, and the head of the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Hossein Salami, were killed. Salami, a veteran officer, was close to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was known for his tirades against Israel and the US. Just last month, he warned that Tehran would open the gates of hell if attacked. Iran's state news agency says 6 leading nuclear scientists were also killed. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says Israel should anticipate a severe punishment. He says his military forces won't let them go unpunished. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. On social media, he's claiming he gave Tehran a 60-day ultimatum 61 days ago. He reportedly told ABC News there will be more attacks to come if Iranian leadership does not agree to a nuclear pact. Richard Madden is following the developments in our Washington bureau. Richard, take us through the initial reaction.
Well, the U.S. quickly distanced itself from the conflict. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying in a social media post that the attacks were unilateral. The U.S. was not involved, but was told that Israel felt it was necessary for its self-defense. President Donald Trump telling Fox News late last night that he knew Israel was planning to launch the attacks before they happened that targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, missile sites, scientists, and military leaders. And here's what Trump said to reporters just a few hours before the airstrikes happened.
Well, I don't want to say imminent, but it looks like it's something that could very well happen. Look, it's very simple, not complicated. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Now, the administration says it's taken all necessary steps to protect American troops in the region, warning Iran not to target U.S. interests or personnel. Now, Trump has made it clear he wants to find some sort of diplomatic solution to this, but if Iran retaliates against the U.S., that could completely change America's involvement.
As you say, Richard, Trump pursuing a wider nuclear deal with Iran. So how could these most recent events affect that?
Yeah, so this could complicate those planned nuclear talks scheduled in Oman on Sunday between the U.S. and Iran. And even though the White House denies involvement, this could undermine the Iranians' trust in the U.S. and diminish its role as a mediator, since the U.S. is Israel's closest ally. Now, later this morning, President Trump will meet with his national security team in the Situation Room, so we could get an update on his next steps at some point later today.
Richard Madden in Washington. Thanks, Richard.
You bet.
Emergency personnel still combing the crash site of Air India Flight 171 as the search for answers continues. The plane went down into a residential neighborhood yesterday. So far, at least 265 bodies have been recovered. Our South Asia correspondent, Salima Shivji, is on the scene with the latest.
Outside the hospital where victims of the plane crash were taken, Kalpesh Patni is lying down inconsolable. My brother is gone, he says. Akash, only 15, was killed by the plane's burning door that ripped off from the wreckage and plowed into their home. Their mother is in a hospital bed with severe burns all over her body. Both my daughter and my mother's bodies are here at the hospital, this man cries. They were serving food at the medical college the plane crashed into. Only some of the several dozen victims killed, rescue workers believe, as the aircraft tore through a residential area before bursting into flames. Family members are giving DNA samples to formally identify the victims, and Indian officials say the exact death toll won't be clear until that's done.
It's horrible. That's the only way I can describe.
Doctors like Isha Vora are working overtime to complete postmortems and give families some closure.
There are way too many bodies. They are beyond identifiable. They are completely burned, and the only way they are identified is by using their teeth.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi toured the crash site and met with survivors this morning. One of the plane's black boxes has reportedly been found, say local media. A key piece of information for investigators to determine how the Boeing plane crashed to the ground less than a minute after taking off. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ahmedabad, India.
Peaceful protest!
Demonstrators march around government buildings in Los Angeles. The National Guard remains on the streets despite a ruling by a federal judge that Donald Trump's order to deploy them was illegal. But then an appeals court put the brakes on the judge's ruling. Steve Futterman has the latest.
The order was set to take effect at noon today, but was put on hold when the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stay. It will now review the case. In his ruling, District Judge Charles Breyer said control of National Guard troops in L.A. must revert back to California Governor Gavin Newsom. The judge called Trump's actions illegal, exceeding his authority. Newsom says he expects the ruling to be upheld.
Today is a big day for the Constitution of the United States, for our democracy. We push back against these authoritarian tendencies of a president that has pushed the boundaries, pushed the limit.
Trump claimed his action was legal because he was trying to suppress a rebellion. The judge flatly rejected the argument, saying the protests in L.A. fall far short of a rebellion. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Some of the most powerful leaders in the world will be in Alberta this weekend for the G7 summit. Host Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to avoid a repeat of the drama that played out the last time Canada hosted. Ashley Burke reports.
The Prime Minister is trying to Trump-proof the G7 to avoid the kind of disaster they had to deal with the last time Canada hosted. A senior Canadian official says Canada is going to try to get G7 leaders to agree on short, action-oriented statements rather than a long joint communique like in the past. Former Canadian ambassador to the UN, Louise Blake, calls it creative.
I think this is more pragmatic, it's a little bit more realistic, and it does prevent a derailment.
A derailment like in 2018. Canada hosted in Charlevoix, Quebec. At a post-summit press conference, the Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau, vowed to retaliate against U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. Trump lashed out, rescinded his support of the joint communique, and the whole summit ended in disarray. Now Mark Carney is taking a different approach.
It makes it a lot easier to get the president to agree on short statements than trying to get a long communique approved.
It's seeking different ways to communicate areas of consensus and concern.
Senator Peter Harder was Canada's Sherpa, a top diplomat for 3 of these summits in the past.
So it's de-risking a negative media outcome while making progress on specific issues.
It's also a way for Carney to put his stamp on his first G7. Leaders start arriving in Alberta on Sunday. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally, that is the sound of Friday the 13th. In fact, every Friday the 13th since November the 13th, 1981 in Port Dover, Ontario. Just picture it, an estimated 100,000 people, many of them riding motorcycles, expected to visit the small Ontario town. This year, there are the usual road closures, but if you're a biker and headed to the area, you should also take note. Local officials say the event has become so huge that the bikes get in the way of emergency vehicles, so they're putting a limit on the number of motorcycles allowed to park on the main street.
Head out on the highway, looking for adventure.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Take the world in a loving embrace.
Explode into space. Sorry. When you're hearing that song, you got to finish the sentence, right? Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and you are listening to Information Radio live in downtown Winnipeg. Got lots of sunshine and a little bit of smoke in the air. This is CBC's Morning Show, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, and hello, everyone watching on YouTube. To the forecast in a couple of minutes with Abby, and I repeated this a few times this morning, but I think it's significant. We don't have any air quality advisories issued this morning for anywhere in Manitoba. This is the first time, I think, in about 3 weeks to a month, so a little bit of good news there. This hour on the program, Sunday is Father's Day, and more than 20 years ago, a local father wrote an open letter to his son and published it in the Winnipeg Free Press. Now, his son's grown up, and the two of them revisited that letter and reflected on how parenting has changed, and they've written a new piece. We're going to hear from him, stay tuned. Also, how a Winnipeg actor landed a leading role in Netflix's newest teen drama. He'll be in studio. And it's construction season. What are you thinking about some of the city's biggest projects? Jim Agapito was out and about, and we're going to hear from him and what you had to say coming up at 10 to 8. Is the pain worth the gain? We're going to get in the long run on the roads. Right now, to Matt Humphrey with our news headlines.
Good morning. Manitoba's premier says his government could use emergency powers to free up hotel rooms for people who escaped the wildfires still raging in the province's north. Wab Kinew says he's thankful so many in the hospitality industry have opened their doors, but says some hotels aren't stepping up to help. He says the province has been restrained in using emergency powers so far to force them, but that could change if the situation doesn't get better. Meanwhile, leadership at Pimachikamak Cree Nation says help from the Canadian Red Cross for its evacuees has been slow to arrive, and the nation has been covering the cost of meals for its hundreds of members. More news at the bottom of the hour.
So, Matt, it's Father's Day on Sunday. And,
right.
I don't know if any dads in your life along the way ever had interesting style choices. I was talking about my dad, socks and sandals long before they were cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, in your house?
We had a pool growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when we had friends over, he wouldn't, wear his Sunday best or anything when cleaning the pool. And that was embarrassing. He was kind of like a boxer and shirt kind of guy in front of all your grade 10 friends kind of dad. But he kept that pool clean. Oh,
I love that image.
I'll have to send him a note. Thanks for the reminder.
Do you know what I love? I love the way your face looks right now talking about your dad. I can see you're looking at him and you become that age again.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have a slight embarrassed flush in your cheeks.
The embarrassed flush is he has that big pool skimmer thing, right?
Yeah.
The net. The big butterfly net.
Yeah. But it's lovely
nice
though,
guy.
right?
Nice guy.
Yeah. So is my dad, a nice guy. But some embarrassing style choices. Abby wants in.
Oh. Well, what I took away from my dad is long gone now, 20 years, but I was a kid then. I would watch him. He had this brand of shoe polish. It's called Kiwi.
Okay.
He actually shaped me into the person that would always want to clean my shoes every time because I would see him pick up the Kiwi and, polishing
Kiwi
his
brush, yeah.
and
Nice.
then, that just became part of my life.
I love that.
And that's what transcended into the guy that loves shoes today.
We've talked about your sneakers and how they're always gleaming on the air before. I didn't know that came from your dad.
It's from that man.
Oh, I love that. Did he wear sneakers or did he wear a different kind of shoe?
He was more like a shoe guy.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, we're thinking about dads. If you want to call us, 788-3205. Maybe we got your juices rolling and you got images of your dad, whether he's by a pool or polishing the shoes. Matt, thank you. I know you'll be back.
Back soon.
Let's go to Abby next, actually, to find out more about the weather.
Yeah, it's going to be warm and mostly sunny across the regions in the southern part of the province. We'll see hazy and breezy conditions develop later in the day. Up north, cooler with a mix of sun and clouds. In Winnipeg at this time, 13 degrees with hazy skies, a bit of sunshine in the mix there. Some smoke still, you'd notice it in the air, but no warnings in the forecast. The day is looking bright and warm with mainly sunny skies, and we warm to 25 today. Light winds coming from the west, just making it a calm afternoon for you. And heading into the evening, we'll see some partly cloudy conditions. Across the south, we're seeing 12 to 14 degrees right now. The sun also making its appearance in most of the regions, warming up to 25. And then further north, we're seeing 3 to 11 degrees this morning also. For a mix of sun and clouds, no warnings except just a bit of local smoke here and there.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby's going to grab the phone. He always helps out because Sierra's on the air with traffic. He'll whisper to us in our ear and we'll pass it along if something's a problem. What do you have to tell us, Sierra?
It's been pretty quiet on the commuter line, other than David calling a little while ago. He mentioned westbound Chief Peg was at Henderson. There were emergency vehicles in the right lane. Haven't heard any updates about that, but if you have any, please don't hesitate to give me a call. So if there's something slowing you down out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Sierra. Well, let's keep talking about Father's Day. What influence does social media have on teen boys? More than 20 years ago, as I alluded to at the top of the hour, more than 20 years ago, sociologist Dennis Hebert wrote an open letter to his son and published it in the Winnipeg Free Press. He called it "To My Teenage Son." Now, at the time, his son was going through some hard times, and Dennis wanted to tell him that what he was experiencing was just part of nature. 20 years later, Dennis has written a follow-up piece, now this time with his son, and the two of them are reflecting on some of the challenges in the piece that face teen boys today. Now, his son was unable to join us, but Dennis is here to talk about how fathers guide kids through these challenges of 2025. Good morning.
Good morning.
So why don't we start with 20 years ago? I just want to briefly look at that and then move to today, but what was the nature of the first letter that you published?
Well, first of all, one correction. It wasn't published in the Free Press. It was published in another publication.
Oh, pardon me. Was the updated one in the Free Press then?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I mixed that up. That's my fault.
That was a week ago.
Okay. That was my fault. Okay. So years ago in this magazine, what was the nature of that letter?
Well, I was just talking about the different conditions and the different kinds of relationships between a father and son. And I was just trying to encourage him by saying that it wasn't his fault, the challenges that he was facing, and whether he needed more space or whether he needed a change in circumstance or whether he needed help from me would vary according to his circumstances. And I used analogies of three different flying creatures.
Yeah. What was your son's reaction to that letter?
Open, thankful. He continued to work through his own life, and our relationship continued. So that's the primary point, is just maintaining communication and relationship with sons.
What kind of, how much, I'm not sure how much you can share publicly, but what kind of challenges was he facing as a teen?
Just the normal ones, about relationship with friends, trying to find a career path, trying to establish a lifestyle that would be positive. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what pushed you to write a follow-up all these years later? What prompted that?
Well, we're both writers by now. We both write for the think tank of the Winnipeg Free Press, as well as many other publications, and we had never co-authored anything, and we just thought it'd be a cool idea to actually co-author something for the first time in our life in an outlet that we both contribute to. So that's what we did.
How would you characterize the current piece? I've read it, of course, but what do you want to share with the listeners about how interesting it was to sort of write this with your son and reflect on how it compares to who you both were 20 years ago? Where was the growth in learning?
Well, the three images of giving a son time and space, or looking for different circumstance, or looking for help, those remain the same. We never did talk about which one of those three was most helpful for him. But perhaps another aspect of what of the difference between now and then, 20 years ago, is just the change in circumstance for young men's lives by now is significantly different. So at this point, he's sort of looking back and comparing the era in which he grew up compared to the era in which young men today are growing up. So that was a difference.
And I'm going to lead us through the social media aspect of what you've written about, because that's a little bit obviously of some of the pressures. Can you characterize some of that?
Well, the social media, of course, is huge now compared to what it was 20 years ago. And the challenges of young men today in keeping up or not missing out or being watched or being observed is a lot different. But I think the main difference is that young men today have access to bubbles or echo chambers or silos, whatever you want to call it, that they didn't have 20 years ago. So they can seek out what sort of feeds them in ways that they couldn't prior to social media. And the biggest danger today is that young men just get caught up in the manosphere, what has been called the manosphere, and just become absorbed or cocoon in this far-right toxic masculinity that is actually not just counterproductive for them, but counterproductive for society, obviously.
How can fathers, in your view, support their teen sons through this complicated time? And I wonder what the impact of social media is, how it's changed what it means to be a father as well.
Well, I think throughout history, it's not just now in social media. The biggest challenge for fathers is to maintain relationship, to maintain communicative relationship. So to talk to their sons, and it doesn't matter what they do, what their sons experience. For me, the primary imperative for parenting is never break relationship, never break communication. You can't always control communication because the other half has their say in how much they're going to communicate, but maintain relationships so that if circumstances do change, if troubles do come, that you can at least talk about it. And so today, can a father talk to his son about what kinds of social media they're absorbing or communicating with? Using or communicating. That's the biggest challenge. Can we talk about what you are talking about? Can we talk about your life?
When you reflect on, you've alluded to this a couple of times, so I just want to bring listeners, up into what we're talking about here. When you reflect on that initial piece that you wrote, and then also some of the imagery in the current piece, you're talking about these three natural images. And so one of them is a bumblebee, one is a buzzard, and one is a nocturnal winged bat. And I understand your son, I think, is a bat. Can you explain this to us?
My son is a bat. Is that right?
I don't know. I was told that your son you feel like your son is a bat when it comes to these scenarios. Can you explain the scenarios and why you wrote about them and how they fit into our conversation?
Okay. Well, the order is a buzzard, a bat, and bumblebee. So that the buzzer is a flying creature that needs space in order to take off. And if a buzzard doesn't have at least 12 feet to take a run, it will never even, because it needs to take about at least a 12-foot space run before it can take off. If a buzzard is fenced in so that they can't run for at least 12 feet, they will never even try to take off. So the analogy for, the analogy for parenting is: have you given your child enough space to run freely so that they can take off or not? I thought I had, or that my partner and I had. So that was not our son's condition of being fenced in, being imprisoned in a fence that was too small for him to take off. That was the buzzard. The bat is a creature that in order to take off and fly, they have to be able to leave their feet. They have to be able to jump off a ledge. They can't just take off from a flat ground. And so that to me is a circumstantial change. So does your son need a circumstantial change so that they can take off and take flight? And in our son's life, I think that was what actually steered him or enabled him to take flight, is a change in circumstance. The third analogy is the bumblebee that is caught at the bottom of a tall, open drinking glass and cannot find its way out. It just crashes into the sides of the glass. And so what that creature needs is help from somebody above. Okay, so there's the parent. And I don't think our son needed help from above so much as he just needed a change of circumstance, as long as there was still a relationship and communication going on. And that's why we think of him as a bat who just needed a change of circumstance.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's why 20 years later, you're reflecting on the importance of communication. Yeah, I love those images. Yeah. Happy Father's Day, Dennis Hebert. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate you and your son being open with your story.
Okay, thank you.
That is a Dennis Hebert, sociology professor at the University of Manitoba. I believe Sierra's popping in here because we have a traffic situation that's developed while Dennis and I were talking there. So it's 7:25 a.m. What's going on, Sierra?
Good morning, Marcy. I had Julie give me a call. There was an incident with a motorcycle happening. I'm trying to find the cross street right now, so I'm going to be doing a little bit more searching here. There was an incident with a motorcycle at southbound Salter. I'm trying to find the cross street for that. There were emergency vehicles on the way, but there are folks stepping in to help someone who appeared to have some injuries. So go slow if you are in that area. And Julie did mention that traffic was starting to back up there. So I'm going to head back into the studio, do a little bit more digging to see what I can find, and then I'll pop back in when I have a little bit more information for you.
Okay, thank you. So we need a little more clarity on where the cross street is, but southbound Salter, somewhere along your morning commute, you might be running into emergency challenges there. So 788-3093 if you can update Sierra on where that cross street is, and we will update you before the bottom of the hour. It is time now on CBC for Morning Sports, and Scott Regehr is with us to talk about the Bombers.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, some good and some stress last night in the game, but let's start with the score and how it went.
Yeah, well, the score was 34-20 Bombers over the visiting Lions, so that's all well and good. And especially impressive since the Bombers were without two of their star performers. Zach Collaros suspended for this single game, and Brady Oliveira hurt on the very first play.
That's the stress.
That's the stress. The most outstanding player in the league last year has some sort of upper body injury that the club's not able to or not willing to at this point elaborate on. All that said, in the absence of those two stars, Collaros and Oliveira, what a performance by Chris Strevler. Threw for almost 250 yards and a career-high 3 touchdowns. And filling in for Oliveira, the 24-year-old rookie Matthew Peterson, the Alberta native, rushed for 130 yards and a touchdown. This is the first ever CFL game for him.
Wow.
Wasn't that something? Head coach Mike O'Shea was asked, Marcy, if he was surprised by his rookie running back's contributions. And he said, given Peterson's youth sports career with the University of Alberta, this wasn't unexpected.
if you look back at his university career, he wasn't just good, he was exceptional. At some point, you know, through coaching, through whatever, I'm sure he believed he could make the jump to the next step. I don't know that he believed it would be easy or anything like that, but he knew it was going to be work, and he got an opportunity. It's pro sport. There's a lot of guys not playing that just didn't quite get the opportunity that they needed, and he got one.
Yeah, Matthew Peterson. This game also saw the return of former offensive coordinator Buck Pierce, now the head coach of the Lions. He and Mike O'Shea shook hands after the game and exchanged a few words, obviously very fond of each other. These two teams meet up again next week, this time in Vancouver.
I love that the panel was calling Matthew Peterson Matty P already. They were like,
Matty P doesn't take long.
We'll see if that sticks or not, if he wants it or not.
Matty
And I
P.
love that Strevlers threw the ball. I think a lot of us were expecting a very different game last night, and right out the gate, right, with that beautiful first touchdown. All right, let's talk hockey. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What else can you say about?
Did anybody else watch that game? Like, I was flipping back and forth from the Bombers, and I was shocked at how it ended. So run us through how this ended with the Oilers and the Panthers.
Yeah, in Florida, comeback of really epic proportions by the Oilers. They were down 3-0 after the first period and somehow found a way to come back and win in overtime 5-4. We haven't seen a road team overcome a goals deficit like that since 1919. Just to give you some historical perspective. Leon Draisaitl got the winner, his fourth of the postseason. That's the most by any player in a single playoff. So it's all tied up at 2 now. The Oilers and Panthers with the next game in Edmonton tomorrow. And meantime, the big news for the Jets, away from the ice, of course. Connor Hellebuyck not just named the winner of the Vezina Trophy as the league's top goaltender, but also claimed the Hart Trophy as the league MVP. He is the first goalie in a decade to win this honor. The last being Carey Price. So congratulations to Connor Hellebuyck and the whole Jets organization for that.
Absolutely. All right, Scott, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
You bet.
On CBC, that's Live Sports with Scott Regehr. 788-3093 if you have anything to update in traffic for us this morning. And still ahead, we have someone that's coming into studio to share some really fun news. A Winnipeg actor who landed a leading role in Netflix's newest teen drama. That's after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 7:30, we're at 12 degrees with mostly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good morning. I'm Matt Humphrey. Manitoba's premier is hinting he could use emergency powers to free up more hotel rooms for wildfire evacuees. Wab Kinew spoke last night after a day spent touring the affected areas in the province's northwest. He got an aerial view of burned-out, smoldering forest, spoke to those involved in the firefighting effort, and visited the congregate shelter set up in Thompson. He says those last images out of Thompson were especially poignant and drove home the need for more beds.
When we see moms with little kids, babies that are 4 months old, 8 months old, and they're going on night 17, sleeping in a cot, I think it's reasonable to ask those who are holding out in that industry, again, the small minority, but I think we can ask them to step up.
At this point, wildfires have forced more than 21,000 Manitobans from their homes. A Northern Manitoba First Nation says the cost of hotel stays and meals for hundreds of evacuees still hasn't been covered by the Canadian Red Cross. Pimachikamak Cree Nation says it's helping pay for accommodations and food for around 800 community members in Winnipeg. Incident Commander Ryan Castell says some people are paying for theirs out of pocket. And he says delivering that many meals has been a financial and logistical nightmare.
Some hotels don't have restaurants. And like I said, our cash situation, we can't afford to do meals right now. But if they're in Red Cross rooms, they're provided meals. And what we're paying for, we asked Red Cross to take over those hotel rooms. They've done it like slowly.
The Red Cross declined an interview with CBC News, but did provide a statement. They are encouraging evacuees who haven't done so to register with them, saying, quote, without registration, it can be challenging for support to be provided. And an organization representing Manitoba small businesses wants more help to offset losses related to the fires. Brianna Solberg is Director of Provincial Affairs with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. She's happy the province is looking at tax deferrals for businesses hurt by the fires, but she also wants to see funds freed up for businesses directly and indirectly affected.
There's a provincial program that exists for that reason called the Disaster Financial Assistance Program, and we just want to make sure that after all is said and done, that programs available and flexible enough to cover key losses for businesses.
Yesterday, the province says it'll waive interest and penalties on wildfire-affected businesses which can't afford to pay their taxes on time. In international news, Israel has launched a wave of strikes across Iran targeting its nuclear program and military sites, killing at least 2 top military officers and raising the prospect of an all-out war between the two bitter Middle East adversaries. It appeared to be the most significant attack Iran has faced since its 1980s war with Iraq. Iran quickly retaliated, sending a swarm of drones at Israel as the Iranian supreme leader warned of, quote, severe punishment. Israel has declared a national state of emergency. Here at home, proponents of a protected bike lane along Winnipeg's Wellington Crescent are angry after their scheduled delegations to City Hall were cancelled. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes says she knows people are frustrated, but she is pushing for such a lane along Wellington.
This needs to happen, so something will happen. I hear it's not happening fast enough, but when I look at other protected bike routes that have gone in, this is happening much faster than other protected bike routes.
A Winnipeg man was killed a year ago by a speeding motorist along Wellington. A report to City Council about a temporary protected lane is due in July. Lukes moved to prevent proponents from speaking to her committee about this yesterday because that report isn't ready yet. And finally, in sports, as you've been hearing, week 2 of the CFL season is underway. Nick Dembski had 2 touchdown catches in Winnipeg's 34-20 victory over the BC Lions, but Blue Bombers running back Brady Oliveira left the game in the first quarter with an upper body injury. Last season, Oliveira was the CFL's most outstanding player and top Canadian. Meanwhile, in the Stanley Cup Finals, the Edmonton Oilers have rebounded from a series deficit. Winning goal coming in overtime, giving the Oilers a 5-4 victory over the Florida Panthers and tying the series at 2 apiece. Game 5 happens tomorrow night in Edmonton. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
I'm totally into it. I was flipping back and forth there from the Bombers game, and I was watching the Bombers, so I missed all of that. I woke up this morning and I thought, wow. Yeah, I was checking out the play-by-play highlights. Just wild.
Right on.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Time for our regional forecast now with Abby Adiyami.
Good morning. We're looking at a warm and sunny day across southern Manitoba, and we see hazy skies and some light winds coming with those conditions. Up north, it's still cool and cloudy there. For Winnipeg right now and surrounding areas, we're already seeing sunny conditions, and it's warm, 13 degrees with some smoke and some sunshine breaking through for sure. The skies will stay mainly sunny, but the hazy conditions are still going to be hanging with us today. We warm up to 25 degrees. We're going to see the winds shift from the east, feeling windy at some point during the afternoon periods, and then we'll drop to about 12 degrees later tonight. In the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at similar conditions for Modern Winkler, Alton and Morris, all the way down to the Emerson border. We're seeing also sunny conditions there, and 12 degrees this morning. The day stays really sunny. We'll see highs around 25 degrees. In the Westman region, Brandon, it is partly cloudy there, 12 degrees. Expect a mix of sun and clouds most of the day with haze hanging around, highs around 22. Also, you get the winds coming from the southeast. In the Parkland region, we're seeing mostly cloudy conditions in Dauphin at this time, temperatures around 12 degrees. Today brings a mix of sun and clouds, also hazy skies, windy conditions from the southeast, high of 22. Gimli is at 14 right now. For the Interlake region, we're expecting mainly sunny conditions with some haze also. Winds will come from the east, and it's going to feel windy at some point, high around 22 degrees. Now with track conditions up north, we're looking at the powerful influence surrounding areas, 9 degrees and partly cloudy at this time. Expect sunshine later, then some clouds will roll in. We still have local smoke still in the air. Highs around 19. Thompson is at 3 degrees. We saw some fog there earlier. That's lifted. We're going to see sunshine, high of 19 degrees. And then Churchill, 11 at this time. Sunny morning, high of 19 degrees. So Winnipeg is kind of matching the high of 25 today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It's time now to update traffic. Sierra's popped back in with the latest of what we know, what's going on out there.
Good morning. So we had an initial call about a couple of minutes ago from Julie. She called about an incident that happened at southbound Salter at Redwood. So there was an incident that happened there. It looked like emergency vehicles needed to tend to someone on the scene, she mentioned to me. So emergency vehicles are on the scene, so proceed with caution there. There are also extra backups at eastbound Redwood as it is closed from Maine to Salter. So kind of a little bit of everything happening there. You have a road closure due to some construction, and then you also have an incident that's occurred at the intersection of southbound Salter at Redwood. So proceed with caution there. Expect some backups in that area. If you have anything else to let me know about that's slowing you down out there, or an update on the incident that we just talked about, you can give me a call on the commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks a lot, Sierra. It is 7:38 a.m. and I want to share some comments that are coming in. So there's a lot going on. So as I always say, we weren't sure quite what to ask you about. So I asked about fires, Father's Day, Marathon Weekend, and then opened it up. What is on your mind this Friday in Manitoba? So we've got a mixed bag here. First of all, they need good weather in Dauphin because the Pride Parade is today in Vermilion Park in Dauphin. And we had Alison Blythe writing in about that and reminded by Barbara Froman about it as well, who said, Allison says, plans on being there with my ally flag and my rainbow dress. Also this morning, people have been writing in about the fire situation. Manny Callisto saying, I still have family members not able to return home to Flin Flon. I can't imagine the stress and the disruption to life. And then earlier this morning, we got in a chat about the embarrassing things that our dads wore along the way. And apparently you're writing to us about this as well. I love these two little stories here. So the first person that wrote in was Trinity McGinnis, who said, things my dad wore that embarrassed me. He had a wallet with a chain on it, and he forever wore that thing, and he would walk through the mall like he was the only one with it. I love that. And then this is a funny story. So this is from Barbara Froman as well. She said, you're talking about funny dad memories this morning, and my dad is gone now, but I used to give him sort of funny t-shirts to wear. So one of them said, still plays with trucks, because he was a trucker. And then I went to grad school, so I bought him one of my school's t-shirts. I did my grad degree at the Pennsylvania State University. So I got him this Penn State t-shirt. His dispatcher saw him wearing it and said, wow, I didn't know you did time. And he looked at her in disbelief and said, Penn State, not State Penn. It's my daughter's grad school. So she is reflecting that he laughed pretty hard at that one as she remembers her dad ahead of Father's Day. So what's in your mind, Manitoba? Father's Day? Fires, marathon, grad, 788-3205. We're in a Friday mood today, or you can also write to us on Facebook. That's where some of those comments came from. That's my Marcy Marcusa page during the show. You can use it as a show page. Well, next, backstabbing, plotting the demise of your enemies, playing a round of poker, suspense, power dynamics, and teen revenge. It's all just a typical day in the fictional world of St. Dominic's. That's the school at the center of Netflix's latest thriller called Bet. The manga-inspired live action follows a group of students as they navigate life at an elite high school. Now, one student's quest is to avenge her parents. And a Winnipegger's at the center of all this.
St. Dominic's Prep goes back 100 years. Parents send their kids here to learn what it takes to run the world. CEOs, dictators, crime lords. But it's not the classes that change you. It's the gambling.
That is the voice of 22-year-old Nigerian-Canadian actor Ayo Solanke. He plays one of the leading roles in the show, a student named Ryan. And I'm pleased to say that he's in studio to give us some time today. Congrats on this role.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
How super exciting it must be.
Oh, my goodness. You tell me. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm just, I'm thankful to be a part of it as a proud Winnipegger, you know?
It's shot in Toronto, right?
Shot in Toronto.
Yeah. And who's Ryan? Tell us a little bit of how do you describe your character?
Yeah. So Ryan is based on a character in the manga Ryota. So he is a kid at this crazy high-stakes school who's helping Yumiko, the new girl, navigate the whole school. So he's kind of like her, you know, her best friend in that, and he wants the best for her. I say he's probably the most sane person in this school, and the story just uncovers that in a very crazy way.
How does Ryan, the character, resonate with you?
Oh my goodness! You know, seeing his description on the audition, even I was like, wow, this character. It definitely displayed a part of my life that I grew up with, where he was in a shell for a long time until, things happened that, started to allow him to have the opportunity to gain self-confidence. And, you really see him evolve throughout the season. And I felt like as a person, I've, come out of my own shell, with and evolving with my own self-confidence. So it was really cool, playing that similar dynamic.
The show, as we've been saying, is inspired by manga. So that's a style of comic or graphic novel from Japan.
Correct, yeah.
And now you're in a TV show about it. How did that influence the way you approach the role? Like, do you think about that when you're thinking about the work?
I mean, yeah, definitely. It's really important to know that Bet is its own universe. It's of course, it's based and inspired by the original source material, Kakegurui, but we really do take our own liberties and do our own thing. However, we do, pay homage to the original, the manga, and so there are definitely like different traits and attributes that I take from Ryota, that I apply to Ryan, and it's really cool, like combining both and creating an original character.
I was looking this morning, looking up to sort of read more about Bet and the nature of it, because it's been described in different ways. And I actually Googled Bet, is it scary? And it came up, it was like, not scary, it said, Google, for what it's worth. You can tell me if this is true. Okay. But it said suspenseful, disturbing, power dynamics in school, psychological, and revenge. So maybe dark. How fun is it to play, a character in this universe?
It is so fun because deep on the revenge, that this whole story is a revenge story, and that's uncovered. And what's really cool is that every single character at this school has something that they're hiding or something that they're dealing with. Even Ryan, who may seem like a normal person on the forefront, but he has his own secrets. And we didn't dive in to it too much this season, but there's definitely lots to unpack. Yeah.
Let's talk about you. I know you spent most of your childhood living in the UK, but you moved to Winnipeg when you were a teen.
Yeah.
How did moving here shape your love of film?
Oh my goodness, seeing how many films being shot here in Winnipeg is just it's remarkable, really. Like, I mean, that's how I can say I got started in it. I had friends who were in movies, and I was always intrigued because I was on the theatre side of things for a long time, just because I just loved performing like that. But seeing what could be done in Winnipeg, and the opportunities that were, I was like, wow, this is really cool. Maybe I can dive into this.
What was your family's reaction when you told them that you were going to do this? You're going to pursue acting?
I'm really grateful for them, and I definitely would not be here without them, and or where I am even, because they were very supportive, and and it's, of course, they're immigrant parents as well, so there is this stigma around a child being successful in like the STEM field, but they were really supportive, and they were just telling me, if this is what you want to do, go all in, and make sure that you give it your all. And that's what I stuck with.
I mentioned this is in Toronto. I shot in Toronto predominantly. And the cast is actually like a lot of Canadians in this cast. Yeah. What's it like for you to be like a young Canadian actor, but also to experience this with other young Canadian actors?
Yeah, it is amazing because, this cast is all Canadian, actually. And it's like we're really showing the world that we have talent in Canada, and we can also, play amongst the Americans, play amongst, everyone else in the world, Hollywood, and we're really pushing the grain of what we're capable of, and I love that Bet is, a good demonstration of that. Yeah.
We've been talking about the manga Kakegurui, the compulsive gambler is the translation for that. Did you follow that series before you auditioned, or did you have to sort of brush up on all of it and then go to the audition so you would be in the right mindset for the character?
Yeah. What was really interesting was the audition, they completely changed all the names for all the characters, and they tried to, hide it in a certain way that we wouldn't know what it is. And so of course there were some people on set who have seen the manga or who've read the manga and watched the anime, so they knew exactly what it was because it was still the same story. But me going into it, I did not know what it was. I didn't know that was based on Kakigurui. But so I went on. I did the audition based on the everything that I was given. But of course, when I got the role, then I really did my homework and read the manga and watched all 2 seasons of the anime. Just for reference and context.
What's the response been like so far to this?
It's been really good. It's been it's crazy seeing how many people are really resonating with the show, and it's really big right now in Asia, Southeast Asia as well. The Philippines, it was #1 for 3 weeks straight on Netflix, and worldwide, I believe a few days ago, it was #5 worldwide on Netflix. So yeah, the response has been really, really good. I'm very, very grateful for that.
That's so cool. What would your message be if someone's listening to you right now and they're, a young Winnipegger and they might be interested in pursuing a career in film or acting?
I definitely say that nothing's impossible, and everything starts from home. You have to, no one's going to believe in yourself and no one's going to believe in you as much as yourself, and really, really trust in yourself, really be a student of life, always be learning, always be, trying to gather as much information as possible so you can push the grain as well and achieve.
Congratulations on this. Can't wait to see where it takes you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
That is Ayo Solanke, who's from Winnipeg and is playing Ryan on Netflix's Bet. Check it out.
This is your heart. This is your heart after discovering a new CBC podcast. These are your feet. These are your feet after finding a CBC music playlist. This is your brain. This is your brain after hearing your favorite CBC radio show. Fall in love at first listen with the CBC Listen app. Stream CBC audio anytime, anywhere, all for free. Download CBC Listen today.
11 minutes to 8 o'clock. We have a Friday morning traffic update. Lots going on. Here's Sierra.
Yeah, been busy morning. Jacqueline called about an accident between a semi and a van on Main at Market Avenue. So that's in front of City Hall and the Concert Hall. Emergency vehicles are blocking all northbound lanes. Avoid the area if you can and expect delays in all directions.
All right. Smoke in the air, 13 degrees and a high today of 25. Still ahead in the program, we will hear from the Premier. So you might have heard in the news that Premier Wab Kinew has been in the air and up north looking at the wildfire situation in person. So we will have an extensive look at exactly what he had to say, his reaction, what he's calling for, coming up here on the program after 8 o'clock. Right now, though, speaking of things on the roadways, you can count on construction in the summer. And the city yesterday held a construction kickoff event, they called it, Wednesday, rather. Here's Mayor Scott Gillingham speaking on Abenogi-Miikinaw and Pembina Highway, which is currently under construction.
Well, thank you so much to all of you for being here today as we officially launch the 2025 construction season. It's a bit of a paradox here in Winnipeg when it comes to our roads. We love to complain about the condition they're in, and then we like to complain when they're being fixed because of the construction that we have to drive around or navigate around as motorists and cyclists and pedestrians. But the reality is, of course, is that the work is essential, and it means that we're making progress. It means that, as you see behind me, that crews are fixing and repairing streets, renewing bridges, improving bike lanes, and keeping our routes of sidewalks open and passable, and making sure that we are improving the movement of people and goods all across this city.
So that was Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham at the construction kickoff, they called it, event at Abenogi-Miikinaw and Pembina Highway on Wednesday. CBC's Jim Agapito went out and talked to you about what you think of construction, and he started very near that construction zone we're talking about.
It's Raj Soni.
Okay, I'm going to play a game with you. When I say construction season, you say...
Delays, maybe.
How do you feel about construction in the city?
The construction, I'm not sure, it's a mixed reaction. On one side, it's good for the city, but if I have to go to work or school, it takes a lot of time. Driving time has increased a lot. Like the whole perimeter is almost closed, the lanes. So yeah, that's bad, but on the other side, the roads are getting repaired, so it's better for the city also.
My name is Selma Osmanovic.
When I say construction season, you say?
All the time.
All the time in Winnipeg?
I mean, as soon as the snow is gone, basically. As most Winnipeggers, I feel like it's never ending, but I'm not particularly against it.
And why aren't you particularly against it?
Well, obviously it's for the benefit of our city and commutes and just comfort on the roads.
Sam Kodzi.
When I say construction season, you say
Hell.
How do you feel about construction in our city?
I hate it. It's the worst. Honestly, it's not efficient at all. Like, you look at other cities, like Toronto, they do most of their construction during the evening. And also, they have more ways to flow. They don't just close off roads. It really makes our life a lot harder.
Hi, my name's Alvaro Salas.
How do you feel about construction in our city?
You know, I'd say I have a pretty neutral opinion on it. I like it. I like construction when they actually get things done. I don't like it when it makes my way home take 40 minutes.
What construction in the city are you happy about?
I think the one on Abhinoji, yeah, if that's completed, it will be good for me because that's where I work, so it will be easier for me to compute from there.
I think I'm pretty positive about all of it. Again, I think it is for our benefit, and even if a commute is a bit longer, what's the difference? Being in rush hour or just waiting because something's being fixed?
I don't know if I have a particular construction site I'm really happy about. I do like that they redid that main road to get back home. What is it called again? Abhinoji. I did appreciate that they fixed the potholes there, because that was pretty bad. It kind of wrecked a lot of people's cars, so that was good.
Did yours get wrecked at all?
My friend here, actually, his car popped, or his wheel popped.
I was driving home and there was like a pothole. It just kind of popped my tire and I was on the side of the road and it kind of sucked. Which is annoying because we have such a long time off for construction, yet our roads still suck just year round. I don't know how we do it so often, but we have construction like year round and our roads are still never really good.
What construction in the city are you happy about? I see your face. Do you have a response?
Not really. No, nothing really makes me happy when I hear the word construction. I think mostly sadness.
So does it affect your daily commute, would you say, now that we're in the swing of construction season?
Not as directly as it could, just because we do have the rapid transit way. So I just pick whatever bus doesn't go down Pembina, for example. But I know some people, like my parents, are a bit less happy about it.
What do they say?
Well, they're like, oh my god, now I have to leave so much earlier. But they'll survive.
Is there anything that you think we should prioritize in the city construction-wise?
I guess obviously the roads that are the most busy, I would say, but I feel like they get fixed up like every year anyway, so I don't know if it's just the materials we're using or whatever, but you know, maybe longevity. I think that's the word.
Definitely road quality in areas like St. Boniface, or even in residential roads, there's a lot of potholes, and it kind of just makes it tricky.
And how is construction, you know, affecting your daily commute?
It definitely makes it harder to get home. On the way back, it can take like up to 40 minutes.
What do you think they should prioritize?
Being quicker, being faster, being more efficient, making roads that actually like can last the snow and the water. And
so how does it affect your daily commute?
Like hell. Bishop took me like 50 minutes to get home one time. Not one time, just if I take Bishop. I have to go like around river. Takes me like 35 minutes to get home. When if Bishop was open, it would take me like 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Moving forward, you know, how would you like the city to handle the rest of the construction season?
It can be managed a bit better, like the time it takes to construct the roads. If that can be improved, it will be very helpful, because in the summer, in the winters, the roads are already blocked by snow, and in the summer when construction starts, it's pretty much the same as winter, so there's no benefit. If the timing of construction can be improved, so just that.
Not to be a complainer, but maybe during the night if possible. I guess it depends if it's in a residential area, but you know, not during the worst season with rush hours and stuff.
So you'd like it in the night?
If possible. I know my stepdad talked about some of the highways being done overnight, so I don't know if it's possible, but yeah.
I would like them to learn a way to be more efficient, maybe even build in the nighttime if possible. If we can get that, that should be our main concern.
I'd just like them to get things done faster, to be honest. I feel like there's no reason to take like 2 months to do like a simple like road fix or something, you know? Like even over here by the Pembina Bridge, like that kind of like roundabout thing to get onto Abhinoji, they're like taking forever to do it, and all these cones and stuff, it really just messes up like the flow of traffic, you know?
CBC's Jim Agapito taking the temperature of what you're thinking about traffic in Winnipeg and construction specifically in Winnipeg as we start the season. The city held a kickoff event to officially start the construction season, which was an interesting approach. You can always weigh in at 788-3093 on the traffic line. Let's go to Matt Humphrey now. He's in studio to talk about headlines today.
Good morning. City Council's Public Works Chair says she knows some Winnipeg cyclists are frustrated with the pace of building protected bike lanes in the city. Janice Lukes made some people angry yesterday when her committee voted not to hear delegations from proponents of a protected bike lane along Wellington Crescent. Luke says that lane is inevitable, but the report on that bike lane isn't ready yet, and delegates will have another chance to speak at City Hall in July when the report is finished. More news at the bottom of the hour.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Still ahead on this Friday the 13th, things will get a little spooky after 8 as a paranormal investigation team is inviting people to join them on a tour of the allegedly haunted historical museums of St. James Assiniboia. This is on Portage Avenue, so we'll have more on that after 8. Also, in the news this morning, you may have heard Matt talking about the Premier, who yesterday was touring all the wildfire zones. We're going to hear more about what Premier Bob Canoe has had to say to Manitoba hotel owners and others after he spent the day getting a bird's eye view of some of the province's worst hit zones in this wildfire. So that is coming up after 8 o'clock on the show. Smoking 13 in the Winnipeg area right now. Our high today is 25 degrees and mainly sunny. Sierra has been in with some updates. I'm going to try to get these correct. So southbound Salter at Redwood, we do have an incident there. You're going to find problems. Sierra, may you come in actually for a moment? I just jotted this down. It was just developing. I know we're tight to the top of the hour, but what do we need to know about traffic?
I haven't received any update about southbound Salter at Redwood. There was an incident going on there, and emergency vehicles were on the scene. I was just looking, and it sounded like the accident or incident on Main at Market Avenue. It was blocking northbound lanes. There were emergency vehicles on the scene, but it looked like things have cleared up. So things should start opening up. Traffic should start flowing through there smoothly here very soon. Any updates? 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you very much for coming in and highlighting all of that. It's been a busy morning so far. Stay safe, and World Report's next.
On cue. I'm Jill Deacon in for Tom Power. Graham Greene has been in over 100 films and TV shows, from Dances with Wolves to The Last of Us.
Who the hell are you?
Now, the Six Nations of the Grand River actor is being honored with the Governor General's Award for his work. He'll tell you about how it all started.
It means a lot to be recognized in my own country.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
This year, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States approved the first painkiller in decades that is not an opioid. Pain researchers are excited about the breakthrough, finding safer alternatives for people suffering with pain. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Iran's president is vowing a severe response to attacks on its soil by Israel, with Tehran calling the strikes a declaration of war. It's fired about 100 drones towards Israel in response. Israeli officials say most were intercepted outside of their airspace. The strikes targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, ballistic missile factories, and military commanders. Crystal Gamansing has more from Jerusalem.
200 fighter jets reportedly took part in an overnight operation against Iran. Israeli officials warn of rough hours ahead as a state of emergency has been ordered, but say they had to act. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his government's actions were to prevent a nuclear holocaust.
In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time.
Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz was targeted, according to the UN's nuclear watchdog. The IAEA says it is in contact with Iranian authorities to monitor radiation levels. Iranian state media say several scientists were killed, along with the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Hossein Salami. On Iranian television, a statement from the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was read, which pledged extreme punishment for the attacks. The U.S. says it knew of the strikes beforehand, but that Israel acted alone. Robert Wilkie, the former U.S. Secretary for Veterans Affairs in Donald Trump's first administration, says the timing of these attacks play in Israel's favor.
The Israelis have hesitated to fully hit the Iranians because of the presence of Hamas, Hezbollah, and in the Assad regime, Iranian forces in Syria. Those are gone now.
Multiple nations have called for de-escalation. Commercial flights in the region have been canceled, and people across the Middle East wait to see what the coming hours bring. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
U.S. President Donald Trump is responding to news of the attacks with another warning for Iran. On social media, Trump is claiming he gave Tehran a 60-day ultimatum to reach a nuclear deal 61 days ago. Iranian and U.S. officials were supposed to meet in Oman this weekend. It's not clear if those talks will proceed. The attacks, as well, could have destabilizing effects globally. Let's bring in our correspondent, Chris Brown, from our London bureau. Chris, what does all of this mean for the region?
Well, Israel is framing this, John, as a preemptive attack. They said the same thing when they invaded southern Syria after Assad's regime fell. Others, though, including Iran, they're calling it an act of war. Muslim nations say it's blatant aggression. And they say there was no indication of any kind of imminent attack from Iran. Western nations are a bit softer. They're using words like concerned because they also did not want Iran to get a nuclear bomb, although they would much rather have had this impasse solved with negotiations. We've seen the statements from Donald Trump urging Iranian leadership to take advantage of the fact that so many of their hardliners appear to have been killed in these first hours of the attacks. I guess the big question now is to see what the response of the political side of Iran's government is to the deaths of so many of their top leaders.
Chris, granted, this is a big question, but what could come next?
I think it depends a lot on what Israel's intentions are. Will they be satisfied with a limited attack, a partial strike aimed at hitting a few of these key installations, killing leaders? Reuters is now reporting as many as 20 senior Iranian military leaders were killed when they were inside one of those underground bunkers. We're already seeing attacks ongoing throughout the day, indicating that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants a more decisive outcome, an outcome that could take several weeks to achieve. What's notable, again, it has to be said, the lack of any real substantial Iranian response. They have thousands of powerful ballistic missiles in the arsenal. So are things in disarray because of the assassinations of the commanders? Or is Iran holding back for some other reason and a response is still to come?
CBC's Chris Brown in our London bureau. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, John.
In northwestern India, emergency personnel still combing the crash site of Air India Flight 171 as the search for answers continues. The plane went down in a residential neighborhood yesterday. So far, at least 265 bodies have been recovered, including people who were killed on the ground. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji is on the scene with the latest.
Outside the hospital where victims of the plane crash were taken, Kalpesh Patni is lying down inconsolable. My brother is gone, he says. Akash, only 15, was killed by the plane's burning door that ripped off from the wreckage and plowed into their home. Their mother is in a hospital bed with severe burns all over her body. Both my daughter and my mother's bodies are here at the hospital, this man cries. They were serving food at the medical college the plane crashed into. Only some of the several dozen victims killed, rescue workers believe, as the aircraft tore through a residential area before bursting into flames. Family members are giving DNA samples to formally identify the victims, and Indian officials say the exact death toll won't be clear until that's done.
It's horrible. That's the only way I can describe.
Doctors like Isha Vora are working overtime to complete postmortems and give families some closure.
There are way too many bodies. They are beyond identifiable. They are completely burned, and the only way they are identified is by using their teeth.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi toured the crash site and met with survivors this morning. One of the plane's black boxes has reportedly been found, say local media. A key piece of information for investigators to determine how the Boeing plane crashed to the ground less than a minute after taking off. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ahmedabad, India.
Demonstrators march around government buildings in Los Angeles. The National Guard remains on the streets, despite a ruling by a federal judge that Donald Trump's order to deploy them was illegal. But then an appeals court put the brakes on that judge's ruling. Steve Futterman has the latest.
The order was set to take effect at noon today, but was put on hold when the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stay. It will now review the case. In his ruling, District Judge Charles Breyer said control of National Guard troops in L.A. must revert back to California Governor Gavin Newsom. The judge called Trump's actions illegal, exceeding his authority. Newsom says he expects the ruling to be upheld.
Today is a big day for the Constitution of the United States, for our democracy. We push back against these authoritarian tendencies of a president that has pushed the boundaries, pushed the limit.
Trump claimed his action was legal because he was trying to suppress a rebellion. The judge flatly rejected the argument, saying the protests in L.A. fall far short of a rebellion. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
And finally, Swimming Canada has announced its roster for the upcoming World Aquatics Championships in Singapore. The team includes Toronto teen prodigy Summer McIntosh, who is just coming off a record-breaking week. Yasmin Renea reports.
And here comes Summer McIntosh, putting together one of the most impressive weeks of swimming I know I have ever witnessed.
After smashing 3 world records in 5 days at the Canadian Swimming Trials in British Columbia, 18-year-old Summer McIntosh is headed to Singapore.
McIntosh to the finish, and it is! She destroys it again!
She says she's determined to break even more records.
You really just use this as motivation and also validation for my training so far, and just to keep pushing and moving forward.
Joining McIntosh are 27 other swimmers. They include Toronto's Penny Alexiak, one of Canada's most decorated Olympians, and Montreal's Ilya Haroun, who on Thursday broke his own national record in the 50-meter butterfly.
They all want to be the best in the world, and that's what makes them phenomenal athletes.
John Atkinson is Swimming Canada's national coach.
It's going to be exciting. We really been so well supported across Canada, and we want to do Canada proud and represent the Maple Leaf when we go to Singapore.
What a swim by McIntosh.
The World Aquatics Championships begin next month in what's shaping up to be a summer to remember. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps to spread the word. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good Friday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC's Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. No air quality advisories, which is good if you're out and about running and maybe preparing for Sunday's marathon, or maybe you got something planned with Dad, or if you're still evacuated from one of your communities in North, you're just looking forward to maybe finding some relaxation, we hope, here in Winnipeg this weekend. Good morning to everyone listening. We're going to get into some comments from Dad. You've been writing in on the embarrassing things your dad wore, and we've actually got a couple more stories to share. We also have a really lovely call to play on the listener line about the impact of one man's father, so stay tuned for all of that. Also, we're about to hear in the news about Premier Wap Kinew. He had a tour yesterday of the wildfire zone, and we'll hear more from him in this half hour as well. And it's Friday the 13th. Here's a story for you. A group of paranormal investigators is taking people on a journey through history this weekend and reported paranormal activity at the historical museums of St. James Assiniboia. This is up on Portage Avenue, so we're going to hear more about that. Right now, here's Matt Humphrey with headlines, as I alluded to, headlines about the Premier.
Indeed. Premier Rob Canoe is hinting he could use emergency powers to free up more hotel rooms for wildfire evacuees. He made the comments after touring burned-out areas, as Marcy mentioned, in the province's northwest. He says many hotels have been accommodating, but there are others that haven't opened their doors to people in need. Now, he says the province may use emergency powers to compel them to do so. We'll hear more at 8:30. Meanwhile, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says the province could do more to help businesses affected by the wildfires. The province says it'll waive interest and penalties for businesses which can't afford to pay their taxes on time, but the Federation says more help is possible. We'll hear more at the bottom of the hour.
All right, Matt, thank you.
Back soon.
Abby with a quick look at our forecast.
15 degrees in Winnipeg. We're heading into a warm, hazy Friday with light winds and sunny weekend ahead.
All right, and now to the developing traffic situation. Lots going on with Sierra Sanders.
It has been a busy day on the commuter line. So there was a collision at Main and Market in front of City Hall and the Concert Hall. Emergency crews were on the scene, but it has since been cleared. All lanes are open to traffic, and so it should start moving smoothly through there. And also something to note, Abinogi, Mi'kmaq, and Lakewood, there was a stalled transit bus blocking the westbound curb lane. So keep left to pass there. Still a little bit of time in the show. You're welcome to give me a call on the CBC commuter line if anything's slowing you down out there. 204-788-3093.
Father's Day. Let's look at some of these comments coming in about your dads. So Ray Sweet wrote in, looking back at pictures, one might be embarrassed of my dad's many costumes, but I always felt proud when he participated in the many events that required them. He was a bumblebee in the corn and apple parade, a scary janitor greeting us at Halloween parties. He played a variety of characters to coincide with my costumes as we went trick-or-treating, and he was always sure to be there, sparing no accessory or makeup. Lori Grev's dad remembers a shirt. It's always this way, right? There's that article of clothing. My dad had this orange hat when he mowed the lawn, like probably for 10 years. Don't know if he ever washed it, that thing. Her dad was wearing a shirt with trains all over it, kind of like a collage, she writes. It was brown and awful. He chaperoned a field trip to Regina. We lived in southern Saskatchewan at the time. He fell asleep on the bus, and my friends made fun of that shirt and the fact also that our chaperone fell asleep for the entire hour bus ride as well. And she writes, Dad, love ya. Here's to years to come. Now, also a lot of people on Father's Day thinking about the dads that aren't with us anymore. Here's a call we got from Joshua.
Hi, good morning. I guess this is the first Father's Day without my father around, so it's a pretty difficult one, but I am thinking often about the gifts that he gave me through over the course of his life, and definitely one of them was the gift of music. The man wasn't very musically inclined. He was a karaoke king, though, and he could sing to the top of his lungs. But he gave me the gift of music when I was 12 years old, and I walked down in my basement, and there was a drum set sitting there for me. After that, he followed that up with an electric guitar, and I've been playing music ever since. I get to share that gift of music with people, and it is a huge honor. I actually get to share the gift of music tonight at Blue Note Park with the beautiful people of Winnipeg. And we hope that we would see you all there. We are the Full Benefits playing with Juvel and Bonder tonight at Blue Note Park. And yeah, we would love to see the CBC crew out there. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Take care, guys.
It's 8:15 right now, and as we alluded to in the headlines, quite a day for Premier Rob Canoe yesterday. He visited some of the province's wildfire areas. He was flying, and then he would land and meet with people, and then he came home with a message for any hotels in Manitoba that have not yet opened their doors to evacuees, as Matt was just saying. Here is more about what the Premier had to say. He was speaking with reporters after arriving back in Winnipeg last night.
So we just landed from a busy day touring northern Manitoba. We started in Baker's Narrows, where the operation fighting the fires near Flin Flon and other communities in the region is being staged out of. So we had the opportunity to thank some of the American firefighters who were just heading out, speak to some of the Office of the Fire Commissioner and Manitoba Wildfire Service folks who've been leading the Manitoba job of containing those wildfires in the area. Then we went into Flin Flon, spoke to a number of firefighters from different parts of the province. It's really amazing to see everybody stepping up and working together as part of a One Manitoba, Team Manitoba approach. Then we went to Thompson and we toured the evacuation reception center and congregate shelter at TRCC, the community center. And it's amazing work that we're seeing from the Department of Families and from the City of Thompson, from the First Nations leadership and the MKO. But it's also really pulling at the heartstrings when we see families with kids sleeping on cots in a hockey rink 2 weeks into this thing. And when we see families, kids sleeping in cots for a couple of weeks, I think we know that we can maybe take that other step forward as Manitobans. So the vast majority of people in the hotel industry have been great partners to us. We got, thousands of rooms that we're working across the industry. But I do want to say that for those operators of hotels who aren't stepping up, we need to see more. We all know that there's more rooms out there that we could be tapping into. There's kids sleeping in cots, going into the third week now, and we are asking you to step up. We have emergency powers. We've been very restrained in how we're using them, and we don't want to use them. So if people can step up, and those folks that are sitting on rooms potentially voluntarily move forward and help us to make sure that, that parent with some young kids with the baby in a stroller is not going to be sleeping in a cot tonight. I think that's something that we all want to see in the province of Manitoba.
When you were in the chopper, you got a look at the biggest fire near Flin Flon, and
yeah.
When you hear things like 307,000 hectares, it probably doesn't make the same impression as getting eyeballs on it. What was the sort of visual impact of seeing it?
Well, this burn area is massive. This is just a huge part of the province that has been burned, and it's a very busy part of the province in terms of you got Flin Flon, you got all the neighbors in the Saskatchewan communities, you've got cottages, and then many other surrounding communities in the area, both towns, Northern Affairs, First Nations. So it's just a massive blaze. But what really strikes me is that we're in a helicopter there with somebody who's been in the Manitoba Wildfire Service for decades, and they said you'd have a big fire, once every 8 years or so. Now it's every single year. We're getting these massive blazes, and they're happening earlier, and it's going later into the year as well too. So I cannot stress enough what a job these folks are doing. The Wildfire Service, Office of the Fire Commissioner, folks from across Manitoba, local cities, towns, First Nations sending their fire crews up north to help. This is what this province is all about.
Premier, your preamble's maybe a bit ominous. Is it a bit of a warning?
I would hope it comes across more as encouragement and maybe a bit more of a direct call out. Again, the vast majority of the hotel industry has been great. We've got thousands of rooms. We've got staff in so many of those hotels doing a great job, problem solving, doing great things. But at the same time, we can't help but notice we drive by some hotel parking lots that are empty. And then when I see a mom with a baby and a stroller and young kids that are going to sleep on a cot tonight, I think we can do more. We don't want to use emergency powers. Manitobans have been stepping up. It's great. So if we could just get that extra little boost from folks to make sure that we're all working together. We're talking about some communities maybe next week. Over the weekend they're going to be going home. Some communities might be a little bit longer than that. But let's just try and work together and make sure that we can take care of one another.
You don't want to use emergency powers, but you're hinting that you might, and we're heading into the sort of prime tourist season with some of the big festivals coming up. A lot of out-of-towners come to town.
Yeah, well, the thing with declaring a state of emergency is that you have to operate with restraint. This is not something that we do lightly. The reason why we did it is because we had that initial surge of some 18,000 people moving south, and then we had a few thousand on top of that. The best way forward is for folks to just say that, you know what, we do have some rooms we can set aside, or we can open up, and we'll just have people, put the hand up and step forward. That's always the best way to do things. And to be clear, that's how it has been so far. We've got thousands of rooms at different hotels in many different cities across Manitoba. And people have been stepping up and saying, we want to help. And when the government calls, they've been saying, or the Red Cross calls, they've been saying, yeah, we're willing to work together.
How many rooms do you need?
Well, listen, there was 180 people sleeping in the congregate shelter in Thompson last night. You have more folks who are in shelter here in Winnipeg. So those are families, but it should give you the order of magnitude, at least, in terms of what we're looking at.
Premier Wab Kinew speaking with reporters last night after landing at St. Andrews Airport. 8:21, and it is not just Friday, but it's Friday the 13th. And so we thought we'd get in the mood for that. Winnipeg Paranormal Group is inviting people to join them in their investigation of the Historical Museum of St. James Assiniboia on Portage Avenue. And I should say that they have invited people because this event is sold out, but it's super interesting. So we're going to talk about it because the museum features 2 historic buildings from the early days of the settlers in the area. There's a rich history, though, of reported paranormal activity with both staff and visitors saying there's unexplained experiences going on. For instance, Bonita Hunter-Eastwood is the executive director and curator of the Historical Museums of St. James Assiniboia. Have a listen to what she had to say about some of the things that she's seen.
I can tell you many stories that have happened. You're going to hear noises. You're going to hear the bell ringing. There's movement upstairs. If I pick up the phone, sometimes it's complete static. Staff would call me and say, the books are all over the floor upstairs. There's no reason for the books to come out of the shelf upstairs. My experience in the Brown House is very different. I know that staff has come running to me because we have trunks. This is the middle of the day and the trunk lids are going up and down, up and down. It's when I pick up the phone to make a phone call, it's absolute static. When I hear the whistling, when the doorbell rings, when the door opens. So there's that kind of, when I see shadows, those are particularly something that did make me very nervous in the beginning, but I became very accustomed to. There was one incident in particular that we had a group that were performing for us and practicing, and they were there. It was about 11:15 at night, and I got a phone call, and I know the person very well. Said, "What is going on?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We're sitting there after the practice set, and all of a sudden the chair in front of us just went and flipped up, turned right upside down and came right back down." They said they got out of there pretty quick.
Anyone else have goosebumps? Bonita Hunter-Eastwood, the executive director and curator of the Historical Museums of St. James Assiniboia. Well, Ashley Barnes is with us, lead investigator of Winnipeg Paranormal Group, who actually started out as a client herself and is now part of the group and going to be part of what's happening with this tour of this space this weekend. Hi there.
Hi.
So what a fascinating, set of experiences that people are reporting and talking about. What's the history behind this museum?
Well, paranormal wise, like the history, it goes way back. Like one of the houses is still a log house, and it was originally in the Headingley area for William Brown. And that's where we get a lot of the activity. The other location would be the administration building, which was for the town of St. James. And there's actually a jail cell still down in the basement. So we get some activity in there as well.
I read a Free Press article that was written on this space years ago, and they sort of heard people at the time referring to someone named Charlie, that maybe he was an old caretaker that would have been on the grounds. When you do these tours, do you talk about the history, or how do you handle walking people through?
So we always make sure that we have somebody from the museum with us who's able to answer the history questions, because, as much as we love the location, we're not experts on the history of it, right? So we handle the paranormal side of it. We handle teaching people how to use the equipment, walking them through, doing a basic investigation of the space. But, either Barry or Justin or Bonita sometimes is there to help with the actual historical questions for that.
Has your team captured anything there? And if so, what has your team captured?
We have, yes. I think the best piece of evidence that we have caught actually came from one of the attendees. She was recording in the Brown house. And this was after we had kind of finished off for the evening. She asked if she could just kind of go back in and say her goodbyes and kind of finish up. And so she was recording in there, and you can hear a little girl say hello.
Yeah. Everyone can imagine that, right? That little voice. Yeah. Where does your passion from the paranormal come from? This is interesting because I mentioned you were at one point a client, and I understand you were a skeptic. So you look at this from a number of different lenses, and people will take with it what they will. But where does your passion come from?
You know what? The fact that we have so many clients who just come back and say, thank you so much. I was able to sleep tonight. I think that's where the passion comes, being able to really, truly help people who are scared.
What scared you when you were a client? How were you? I'm just going to interject here. What was your story when you were a client? What was going on?
So it started out really simple. We had moved into the house. We were renting it. My son was about 2.5 at the time. And, we originally, you hear noises when you get into a new place, right? So you just chalk it up to that. But then my son started telling us that the dark man would come out of his closet. So then we started paying a little bit more closer attention to what was going on. And we realized, the noises we were hearing were coming from our house, above our heads. So, it sounded like there was a dance party happening over our heads, or, a handprint showing up on the wall one night. We had toys that started playing by themselves. And then what really kind of got me is, I was laying in bed one night, and there was something that sat down on the bed beside me that was heavy enough to make me roll to the middle of the bed. And when I rolled, there was nothing there.
Yeah, I might call someone too. There's going to be people, of course, listening that say there's logical reasons for all of this, right? And so I know that you started as a skeptic. You actually encourage skeptics and believers in the group. Why is it important to have that balance when you go out and do these things with your group, the investigations?
Exactly like you said, it keeps us balanced. It makes sure that we don't just jump to a paranormal reason, right? We want to make sure that when we're going into clients' homes, that we are really, truly finding the reasons. So we want to make sure that, okay, you're hearing noises in the wall. Well, let's make sure that that's not your pipes, right? Let's turn on your water and make sure that you're not just hearing the rattling in the pipes. Mm-hmm. Because not everything is paranormal. There is logical reasons for things. So, having skeptics and believers, it really just makes an even team.
Well, thanks for the scare this Friday the 13th, Ashley. I know that this event is sold out. How often do you host events like this, though, and where can people go if they want to take part in one and learn more about what you do?
We are actually super busy with events this year. So St. James is sold out, as you said, but we just opened up another date. So we're going to be working with the St. James Museum again on July 5th. And then we're going to be announcing some more events coming up soon. So we've got events all the way through to October right now.
All right. So Google Winnipeg Paranormal Group to seek out more information about them. Thank you very much and enjoy this weekend.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Take care. That is Ashley Barnes. She's the lead investigator with that group, Winnipeg Paranormal Group. Well, let's get into something that is fact-based. Let's get into what's going on with Radio Noon's call-in. Marjorie Dalhouse has popped in.
Hi there, Marcy. We're talking about Father's Day. We want to hear your Father's Day stories. The author of a book called 40 Fathers, Tessa Lloyd, who spoke to 40 famous fathers, including Nigan Sinclair, is going to be here to talk about her book. And also, we're asking you, what did you learn from your father? And maybe you're a parent yourself. What lessons did you take away from your own father that you are doing differently as a parent yourself? So we're taking all your Father's Day comments and stories. Call us after 12:30.
All right. Thank you, Marjorie.
Thanks, Marcy.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. At 8:30, we're at 15 degrees with mostly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good morning, I'm Matt Humphrey. Premier Wab Kinew says he's considering emergency powers to force hotels to free up more rooms for wildfire evacuees. He spoke last night after an aerial tour of the affected areas in the province's northwest. He also met with those involved in the firefighting effort in Flin Flon and visited the shelter set up in Thompson. He thanked many in the hotel industry for opening their doors, but says it's time for the rest to follow suit.
We got families with young kids sleeping in a rink on a cot going into week 3 in that situation, and then we drive by in the same community, a hotel room with an empty parking lot. We are asking for a bit more from the hotel sector.
At this point, wildfires have forced more than 21,000 Manitobans from their homes. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking down for evacuees from Cranberry Portage to head home. At 8 tomorrow morning, people will be allowed back into the community. Close to 440 people have been out of Cranberry Portage since May 30th. Lori Forbes is the emergency coordinator for the arm of Kelsey.
I'm just so happy that they can go home. That's always the question, especially when it lingers on. When can we go? When can we go? They were just, chomping at the bit here, trying to, Lori, can you give us a date?
Forbes says for people without vehicles, there will be 2 buses leaving the Paw tomorrow, one at 9 and another at noon. She's also advising people to stock up on groceries before heading back because there's limited food available in Cranberry Portage, and she says they'll be keeping the dump open an extra day for people who may have spoiled food in their fridges or freezers. Meanwhile, Manitoba small businesses hurt by the wildfires received some good news from the province, but an organization representing them hopes more help is on the way. Brianna Solberg is a director with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. She says temporary tax relief, like what was announced by the province yesterday, is a good start, but tax forgiveness or some other form of assistance would be even better.
When we're looking at lost revenues and potentially some tourism operators missing the entire 2025 season, to have to pay profit-insensitive taxes at the end of the day might force them certainly to make tough decisions, but it impacts, the viability of their business for next year.
The province says it'll waive interest and penalties for wildfire-affected businesses which can't afford to pay their taxes on time. Turning now to a major story developing overseas, Israel has launched a wave of strikes across Iran, targeting its nuclear program and military sites, killing at least 2 top military officers and raising the prospect of an all-out war between the 2 Middle East adversaries. It appeared to be the most significant attack Iran has faced since its 1980s war with Iraq. Iran quickly retaliated, sending a swarm of drones at Israel as the Iranian supreme leader warned of, quote, severe punishment. Israel has declared a national state of emergency. Proponents of a protected bike lane along Winnipeg's Wellington Crescent are angry after their scheduled delegations to City Hall were cancelled. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes says she knows some cyclists are frustrated with the pace of building bike lanes, and she was criticized yesterday when her committee voted not to hear the delegations because a report into the Wellington bike lane isn't ready yet. Lukes says that lane is inevitable, but she understands why people are upset.
I was the Winnipeg Trails coordinator for 10 years. I came down to City Hall 50 or 60 times. I was very frustrated. I've said things I probably shouldn't have said when I was advocating for active transportation. I understand.
She says a report about the bike lane will be ready for July 3rd, when delegations will have another chance to speak. And in case you missed it, there was high drama last night in Florida, with the Edmonton Oilers coming from behind to win Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final.
I mean, that's what we do. We're a resilient group, and we're never going to quit no matter what.
That's Edmonton forward Leon Draisaitl. He scored the winner in overtime as the Oilers beat the Panthers 5-4. Edmonton was down 3-0 in the early going, but rallied with 3 straight goals to draw even and set the stage for that overtime heroics. So this best of 7 is now tied at 2 wins apiece, with Game 5 set for tomorrow night in Edmonton. That's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right, thanks for the morning, Matt.
Thanks for the morning, Marcy.
That's Matt Humphrey filling in for Heather Wells. Bombers taking over the Lions 2 last night, winning 34-20, and no word yet on what is going on with Brady Oliveira moving forward. He got injured early in that game. We're getting to the end of the show here. We have a traffic note to leave you with. Northbound Smith and Ellis, an emergency crew blocking northbound east and west curb lanes. Use the middle lane to pass. Thanks to the folks that work on our programs. I'm going to name everyone in the unit now. Our associate producers, Abby Adiemi, Kalkinamu Lugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, Marshall Hodgins, Dylan Longhurst, Jenna Badasso, Carmen Ponto, Ashrit Veda, May McKillop, Chloe Friesen, Bruce Layden, and Sid Sundance Horshig, Jim Agapito, Shanley Vidal, Nadia Kidwai, Faith Fundel, Marjorie Dowhouse, Brad Lillies, Dylan Longhurst, Nellie Gonzalez produces the shows in our CA unit, Leif Larson's the senior producer of audio, and in our news department this week, Matt Humphrey, Megan Ketchison, Heather Wells, Alana Cole, and Joni Nicolo. Thank you, everyone, for all of your hard work on all of the programs here that people listen to that are about Manitobans, and we really appreciate all of your work. All right, Abby, I did that quickly so I could leave you some space for the weekend forecast.
Yep, it's going to be warm across the province with hazy and breezy conditions developing. Up north stays cooler with a mix of sun and clouds. We're looking at temperatures getting to 20 degrees across the province today. Winnipeg at 25, at 15, warming to 25. Tomorrow we're going to get to 23, and on Sunday we get to 27.
All right, so it could be a little bit hot for the marathon on Sunday, but enjoy your run. Good luck to everybody taking part. Thank you, Abby. And thank you for listening, not just today, but all week long. We appreciate you being here. We are here for you. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Take care, be well, enjoy your weekend. Remember, there's more local programming at noon and between 3 and 6 on Up to Speed. The Current is next on CBC.